We gonna get started. Piers Morgan and Nick Fuentes.
You're a New York Times reader, NPR fan, and Daily Wire subscriber, or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson. For several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men, are interested in what he has to say.
True.
What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the lines should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous
pretty
amount of
good
airtime
monologue.
has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him at all.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Why they blur out the
Fuentes takes this guy
Chiron?
apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick.
By the way, Jillian Michaels is a lesbian, okay? I don't know why anyone is taking moral cues from someone who rejects God's design for basic morality when it comes to sexuality and marriage. So that's the thing. It's like, I don't know why we continue to take moral cues from people who openly, while beating their chests, hate God and his design. Makes no sense. When I was at SAS this past July, I think, I was like, wait, who is this Jillian Michaels? And I looked at her, I'm like, she's a lesbian. And my friend next to me, she was like, wait, what is she doing here? Isn't this supposed to be a conservative conference? I'm like, who knows? Who knows?
Fuentes?
I was very happy to see that, like, Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy things that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
Well, it looks like all the screaming about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on this guy, this Fuentes guy, and never challenged
I
him.
don't think people realize that
Nick Fuentes on your show and you could ask him questions
their
about that.
meltdowns about
It
Nick,
doesn't make a lot of sense.
their meltdowns about Nick make him more popular. Streisand effect, the Streisand effect.
Spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes, but not actually to Nick Fuentes. People who say you shouldn't give him a platform overlook the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own, which is often bigger than most of the people complaining.
Yeah, he's right.
He uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers.
He's
it's
right.
on that basis I've invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform. And Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
Here we go.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those who know nothing about Nick Fuentes,
Let's just, all this being said, Nick was so niche and really not mainstream at all before this year. The fact that he has become so mainstream is, I think, like, it's actually just so crazy to me. It is so crazy to me because by any association or even having a conversation with Nick, it could literally ostracize you from the mainstream conservative movement. But now people like liberals are constantly having conversations and regular conversations with him. And regardless of your feelings on him, I do believe this is a move in a positive direction towards better conversations, steel manning, and actually talking to people instead of talking about people. Because again, the more that we talk to people, I do believe that we're able to understand each other better. And whether or not you agree with him, we have to be able to have conversations with each other. The more that we just dehumanize and ostracize and talk about others instead of talking with others, that's when you get escalation of political violence and extremism. And I just don't like seeing that.
I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk as we prepare.
Unfortunately, a lot of people on the right care more about what the left thinks about them than what is objectively the truth. And this is the problem. A lot of normie cons feel this way, and this is how they operate. They operate like, I don't want to be seen as a racist or an anti-Semite or a misogynist or a homophobe. I don't want to be seen as that. I'm one of the good guys. And that's why they always do the framing of the left are the true racists, the left are the true transphobes, and all this stuff, right? So regardless of what the zeitgeist is or says, what the hegemony of our culture says and dictates, like, we have to stand in the truth regardless of what our enemies, our political enemies, how they perceive us. That's the bottom line.
Prepared for this in exchange.
Piers Morgan is a lot like Bill Maher, like a clock can be correct just twice a day. Yeah, I think Piers Morgan is a guy operating in good faith. Unfortunately, he is just very wrong most of the time.
exchanges with people and on your show saying if you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't intend to ambush you.
All right, that's
I intend
good.
it to be an examination of what you said on the record,
Okay.
an examination of what you believe,
Fair.
what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you know, you talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief that you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, you know, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously...
By the way, Coleman Hughes, if I remember correctly, he voted for Biden. He voted for Biden in 2020. So he was someone who was avidly against BLM, yet he voted for Biden, which was so insane to me. I remember I was like, I used to respect him, and then he was like, yeah, I'm voting for Biden because Trump is awful for the country. And I was like, aren't you supposed to be this intellectual, like one of the good ones? But I don't know.
Playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think you have to consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison or his son David Ellison. And so I think that's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second,
this is true, and you got to follow the money. Follow the money. Who controls what? And most people are controlled, of course, and most people work under corporations and certain media outlets, and there is a bandwidth of permissible speech and opinions you're allowed to have to stay employed with that organization. And so if the leaders, if the owners, if the ones who are controlling the money in that organization or media outlet has certain political views and has certain partisan views, and if you deviate from it, you will be fired, right? And maybe it's their right to do so, but you have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about the commentators and the opinions of the people who are working under that organization, right? No, that's just an objective fact.
I would say he is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting and we make jokes and we play devil's advocate, we play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking. Here I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest. It just sounds insane.
So this is correct. And this is where we have to be a little more mature about this kind of, oh, you're this person when you're here and you're that person when you're here. Yes, like we should be the same person and live with integrity regardless. But the way that I talk to people in my daily life is very different than the way I talk on the internet, right? The internet's a public forum. It's a public space. This is where we battle out ideas, share the truth, share inconvenient truths. We debunk lies. So there's a lot of, at least for me, people see my online persona and they think I'm super aggressive. They think I'm this like angry, like chud, right? This angry chud who's always obsessed about politics. And I care about politics. I care about theology. These are the things that inform the way that we live. But I'm a chill guy. I'm a fun guy. I love cracking jokes. I love having fun. And I don't regularly all the time talk about politics. I talk about so many other things with the people and the friends and in my life, my family and my church friends, my church community. I talk about all different kinds of stuff. I crack all kinds of jokes. I get into all the trends. And so the way that you talk in different areas of life or different spheres, it doesn't make you a fake person or a dishonest person per se. It can, but it is about being prudent, and it's about applying what is appropriate in that scenario. So, for example, on my own show, yes, I am more hyperbolic. I crack a little more offensive jokes, but if I'm on an interview per se, like for sure, I would be a little more mature in the way that I communicate things. And even like, you know, my private life versus my public life. Yes, in my private life, I might say things that are offensive and might stumble other people, but in that inner circle, in my private life, I'll say it because I trust the people in my own life will know that I'm just joking and I don't mean it literally, versus saying certain jokes in public, I wouldn't say that, right? So that doesn't make me a fake person. That doesn't make anyone a fake person. It's just what is appropriate to say in certain situations and circumstances. For example, I think a pastor cracking racist jokes on the pulpit is very, very ill-advised and not good. Like, pastors shouldn't do that. But if pastors are cracking those jokes in private within the vicinity of their own family, I don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with that. I don't think that makes them a fake person, right? So there are certain scenarios that call for certain conduct of speech, and I think that's totally fine. That doesn't make you this like conspiring, like, oh, I'm conspiring to take power and deceive everyone. I think there are a lot of people like that. Don't get me wrong. For example, like AOC, the way that she talks to rallies in predominantly black neighborhoods versus Hispanic neighborhoods versus white neighborhoods. You see that Zohran Mamdani did that as well. I think there's an element of being fake there for sure. But in general, I don't think there's anything wrong with acting differently to different people because of what's appropriate in that scenario.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about.
I do think there's a potential for him to take political power, though, if the Overton window keeps shifting right. But we'll see. I don't think Nick Fuentes is palatable to the average person in America today. I think he is very palatable and very, very attractive to the disillusioned American. Let's just say the disillusioned American who is very tired of our political system and tired of the state of our country. But to the average person who is okay and just like living their lives, of course, his rhetoric is very concerning, but there's a reason why he's very popular on Instagram these days and TikTok.
Your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Early how? Like my childhood or a little bit later?
Childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. You know, my father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city. And they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family. And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. I was maybe half Catholic, half Protestant. It was a baseball town. I played baseball for many years. In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from. I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down-to-earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University. And I read a lot of things online, and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale or Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration. And so I saw that, and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the south side of Chicago or the west side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that, but
well, I suppose my first obvious question is: were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume there were immigrants in your family who came to the U.S. Is that correct?
Well, yes.
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around the turn of the century in 1900.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American.
Well, I would certainly exist, but like I said, maybe not as an American.
I don't like that frame, right? They always say you have a certain percentage chance to be born as a Chinese or an Indian, right? Be thankful. You see all those memes online. You see a lot of those things like, hey, if immigration wasn't allowed, you wouldn't be alive, or things like that, right? I just fundamentally reject that premise because it is a liberal premise from blank slate liberalism, and we all come from somewhere. And then so there is no like percentage chance or probability that you will be born as a different person, or you wouldn't exist if this wasn't allowed. Like, you are a product of your ancestry and heritage, and there's nothing that will change that. You can't backtrack. You can't go back in time and undo your existence. There's no such thing. And this framework is what allows for liberals to lie to all of us and say that we're all the same. And we're all the same, and there's nothing different about us. And so if you believe that we have differences as people, men and women, there's difference between men versus women, there's differences between ethnic groups and countries and cultures, then you're a racist, you're a bigot. And just we have to fundamentally reject that premise, because the reason why we're alive is because God allowed it, and God is sovereign over that. And so it's not a probability thing. It is what it is because the Lord has willed it, but also at the same time, we are not just random. We're not just random byproducts of chance. We are image bearers of God, but we also bear the image of our ancestors. We come from somewhere, and those roots are important to you. And the more that you try to lie to people to reject that in the sake of this multiculturalist project, the more disenfranchised people will get, the more extreme people will get. And I just don't like that. I don't like to live in a country where it's multicultural and people are at each other's throats, that there is tribal warfare between factions and groups of people. I don't like that. And I think we have to have an honest conversation about this and reject that blank slate liberalist framework.
Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now.
Yeah.
And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland.
This is true, okay? An immigrant from, let's just be honest, Korea or Japan is much preferable than an immigrant from Somalia, okay? And this is where a lot of people are waking up to this reality that the kind of immigrant, it's not just about immigration, it's about also another layer is the kind of immigrants you bring into this country. So for most of American history, until the Hart-Celler Act, all the immigrants, or the majority of the immigrants that came into America were Europeans. And they were Christian. If you start bringing in Muslim immigrants, you start bringing in Hindi immigrants, you start bringing in a lot of these third world immigrants who don't observe the religion and respect the value system of the country they're immigrating to, what do you think that'll do to the country? Why do you think increasingly and so much more so America is not a Christian country anymore? We've imported over 100 million people over the past like 50, 60 years, and the majority of them are not Christian. And they're from third world countries where most of their country is literally still living in squalor and filth. So the kind of immigrants that you import into your country also matters. It does. And this is not hateful to say so. And this is why I'm very grateful that the right wing is waking up to this reality. But the kind of people with their belief systems, with their ways of life you import into America, they will destroy your home. They will. I think we should speak the same language and want to interact with each other. Exactly. And there's nothing awesome about having neighbors you can't communicate with and have nothing in common with. I saw a stat the other day as well. I don't know how true it is that a lot of the Ellis Island immigrants, like half of them will go back to their home countries after a couple of years if they didn't assimilate because there was no welfare and they had to actually make their own way. Yes, exactly. And right now, what's happening is that immigrants are coming in and taking advantage of a lot of these blue states, which used to be homogenous, blue-collar, working-class states, their generous welfare systems, and just stealing money from taxpayers. Like, if you don't assimilate and if you're not a contributing member to society, you should be deported back. And there's nothing hateful about it. What's more hateful is to take advantage of the people who welcomed you in as guests. That is far worse, okay, than deporting someone back to their homeland, and that homeland which they identify with more than the host country they're abiding in.
In Italy, one from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization.
Yeah, exactly.
The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave.
Yeah.
For the first 3 or 4 waves.
This is the largest migration of people ever recorded in human history.
Of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants and then it would stop.
It's going to destroy your country.
Another wave and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is,
especially even all the economic problems we see in America. If we just deported all the illegals, then so many of the economic policies, not all, of course, but so many of the economic problems we have in America would be solved. They would.
This is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you mentioned Mexico in that list, and your father is half Mexican. So,
yeah.
I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have 0 immigrants forever, or even 0 immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now.
And the thing is, when the European immigrants come to America, they all speak what? English. Why? Because it is also the lingua franca, but all the immigrants that came from Europe to America, they learned and spoke English. A lot of these other immigrants that come into America, they don't speak English. They don't learn English. I say this all the time. The amount of times I've interacted with immigrants who don't speak a lick of English in America and they're working here, I'm like, what? Like, how are we supposed to live in a society where we don't even share the same language? His father didn't jump over a fence.
Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador, and it's so many with no break for assimilation, and they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is, and again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody.
And the thing is, there is a real conversation to have about that. Where, for example, a Japanese person is it's far easier for a Japanese person to assimilate to a country like Korea than it is a West African. And the reality is because not only our physiology, not only because of our appearance and our inherent biology, but also because similar cultures, right? Korean and Japanese culture is very similar in so many ways because they've co-developed kind of side by side for thousands of years. And so they're similar in a lot of ways. So it is easier for a Japanese person to immigrate and assimilate to Korea than it is for a West African, for a Middle Easterner, even for a Western European. And in the same way, in America was a WASP country. It really was. It was a West European Christian country at its founding, and it always has been for many years. It is easier for European immigrants to assimilate to America than it is for, let's say, Indians, let's say Nigerians. And I guess to a certain extent, I think there's a caveat there because there have always been black people in America since its founding. So I think in that regard, black people actually can assimilate better to America than, let's say, Muslims from the Middle East and things like that. But the kind of immigrants that you're bringing into a country, it does matter. It does matter. And there are certain immigrants that can assimilate, and they do assimilate better to America and to the West than other immigrants. Let's take, for example, Indians versus Koreans. Let's say I'm just throwing that out there. When Indians immigrate to America, do they ever adopt more westernized names? No, they don't. They keep their ethnic names. And I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that, right? I think actually that's kind of cool that you can keep your own heritage. You want to keep your own heritage. But it's aside from me, of course, look at all the Koreans that you know. Do they all have Western names? Yes. Esther, James, Joseph, right? They all adopt these like Christian Western names because Koreans are much more assimilable. They want to assimilate more than Indian immigrants. And these are the kind of conversations we have to have. This is not racist. This is not hateful, but it is a reality.
It's a product of their environment, right? I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, maybe 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he believed they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, he said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's.
What? I love Applebee's. Applebee's is so goated.
In a million years, should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's, go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant, no Applebee's, no Red Lobster, that is commonly known as black fare. And you also share another story about your family and restaurants. So before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about olive.
Pure Dove, some Indians on the phone disguise themselves with Western names. LOL. I talked to one Indian dude on the phone named Victor. Yeah, but the thing is, they disguise themselves, but they don't actually adopt it. I've never met Indians who have westernized names unless they're Christian. If they're Christian, then they have westernized names. But other than that, like, they always keep their ethnic names.
Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
This kind of like finger wagging. Do you admit that you're racist is so annoying? Because the reality is, and this is not me groveling for white people, but the reality is white people are the least racist by every metric. They are the least racist, and immigrants, minorities are the most racist, okay? They are. And this whole performative stuff of not being racist is so annoying. As a Korean, I know this. I know that Korean immigrants are much more racist than the average well-meaning white person. They are. And is there anything inherently wrong with recognizing patterns and behaviors among groups of people? No, there isn't. But everything like that, it's called racist, and it's just so annoying. It's like, are you as a white person ready to denounce your racism? Dude, I'm just like so annoying. Like, we're all past it. We're all sick of it.
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear,
I think
I'm not
understands.
ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the South Side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family, being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, on the West Side, on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city. And we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so,
yeah, offended by everything, ashamed of nothing. You see that all over the internet. That's the reality. You look at these older pictures of black communities in cities like Chicago and in New York, and in the mid 1900s, even the early 1900s, you see that the way that they present themselves, what were they all wearing? What were the children of what were black children wearing in these cities 60 years ago, 70 years ago? They were all wearing 3-piece suits. There was, at least back then, an aspiration from the black community to be good, upstanding citizens of society, orderly citizens who contributed. And that's why all the best black contributions to American society happened during that time period, because they were trying to be more literate, right? get rid of crime. Like they were trying, and that was the aspiration. Let us be part of civilization and society and be contributing members. Now it's the complete opposite. Many of them have abandoned Christianity, and a lot of them are Christian, of course, but the ones who are Christian and conservative and call black people higher, what are they called? They're constantly smeared as Uncle Toms and these, all these epithets to say you're trying too hard to be white. If you speak with proper grammar, if you get good grades in school and study hard, I've seen this firsthand. They say that you're trying to be white. So, this is a reality. This is not hateful to say it. And now, because what is considered black culture has become this degenerate behavior, criminal behavior, and again, they get more mad about the people saying, hey, we don't want this in our communities. We don't want to live in a country where our cities are terrorized by violent criminals who are let loose by these woke liberal judges. We don't want to live in a society like that. We're called racist, and they're more mad about that, about us calling out crime, than they are about the crime itself, which is why I don't take them seriously at all. It's just crazy. It is crazy. I've seen a lot of reels with black people, men especially, suited up nicely. And again, this is why their Overton window is shifting. Because, you go to Instagram, you watch, there's like sometimes where Nick's reels pop up on my newsfeed, and I look at the comments and they're like, I'm black and I love this guy. I'm black and I agree with him. The black community has completely lost its way. And then there's a lot of black people who react to Nick Fuentes and they're like, hey, he's actually right. What he says about black people is right. We need to clean up our act. And I think there is a resurgence of, when you say black excellence, it's typically from like the wee wuzzery people and the wee was kangs and the liberals. But I do think there is a resurgence of an aspiration for black excellence, like actual excellence. And I think this is only possible when you have people like Nick Fuentes say the truth, maybe in a way that you don't like. Maybe it's crass, maybe it's abrasive, it's offensive, but he says the truth so that people are like, wait, is he right? And I think that's what's needed. You need to say things, and we have to say politically incorrect truths to wake people up out of their trance.
Again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And I think anybody in Chicago would tell you the same.
I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big diversity. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with Aladdin. We have problems with...
You have Aladdin. You have sword problems. You have Aladdin.
Fine. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you can imply it, but I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people...
The LeBron James School for Kids had 100% failure rate, basically. Yeah! And that's the thing. That's why I feel like performative people like LeBron James, they do all this stuff for the black community, but they don't address the actual problems that are causing those problems in the first place. Like the root cause problems.
In some capacity. When I read that anecdote, just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this.
No, but you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just a food snob, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family. So
okay, so when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat Olive Garden because he said that's not real Italian food.
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. Mm-hmm. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in 19. Yeah, so you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer. I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist, and I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay, people can make their own minds up. They can go back.
He really said, I have a black friend. Here's the thing, though. People say that and to dismiss you and still smear you as a racist, but the reality is if you irrationally hate black people, then you wouldn't have black friends. It's the same thing for me. I have black friends because I don't irrationally hate black people. But the reality is I say certain things because there is a pattern of behavior that is constantly not only promoted, but observed in society by blacks. So I don't hate black people irrationally, but if they're acting ghetto and ratchet and disruptive all the time, there's nothing wrong with calling out that kind of behavior. And, I have tons of black friends who are great. They're great. They love the Lord. They hate the degeneracy in the black community. But they're the same ones who are called Uncle Toms. Why? Because they love the Lord and they want the black community to be higher, stop being so engulfed in their fatherlessness and their crime. But if I irrationally hated black people, if we irrationally hated black people, we wouldn't have black friends. We would not want to associate with them at all. So I don't think it's like, it's funny, it's a meme for sure, but it's actually not a valid argument to disprove that someone is some irrational bigot who hates black people just because of their skin color, just because they're different. It's retarded. I love all people, and I say that all the time, and people they're like, no, you're a liar, a phony, you're fake. Okay, whatever.
I can listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke, okay? I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
One of his best clips, by the way, and maybe I would take away the profanity, but I think it's a hilarious clip. It goes viral all the time on social media, and the amount of people I've seen, the amount of women I've seen, the amount of black people I've seen who said that, I actually agree with this. It is so funny.
All true. That's 100% true. Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. We have an under-incarceration problem in this country. All of these, we see so many times on the news constantly about a black criminal who was released because of the soft on crime bail reform policies. They're released, and then they continue to commit violent crime again. I see this all the time with Stop Asian Hate too. All these Asian grandmas who were pummeled and attacked and assaulted were mostly from black criminals who had already been arrested for felonies prior. But they weren't. And if they were locked up, Asians wouldn't be attacked. Those Asians would not have been attacked. And, women need to shut the F up, right? I would never say that. But the reality is I got so much flack for this too. Look at who celebrated the demographic, who celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk the most. Who was it? It was women. And not all women, but everyone who can see reality saw it was mostly women celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. There's a reason, and this is, again, not misogynistic, but there's a reason why scripture always tells women to learn in quietness and submission. There's a reason. Because God did not design women to be in the public arena fighting in politics and in war. God did not design women to lead the church. That is a design and responsibility that God gave men. And when women are not in accordance with the God-given design that has been given to them, then they become erratic and very, very unwell, to the point where they celebrate the murder of someone like Charlie Kirk, who was, again, a good man, a God-fearing man, but they do. And so I'm not saying men are blameless, but this is a reality. This is a reality. Look at how women vote. Look at their overall behavior in society. Modern women, I'm not talking about the lovely, godly women out there, but look at the behavior of modern women. And you cannot tell me that, we need to have women actually speak up more. What has that done to society? What has feminism done to society? Yeah, Lethal, so true. Asmongold said it best, liberal white women who would vote to import the third world are the greatest threat to society. Women constantly complain about how unsafe the streets are, and then they literally vote for the same policies that import third worlders that have rape cultures in their home country, and they literally vote to release violent criminals because racism.
All of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime, so maybe let's say that, 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But you didn't say that. You just said blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right.
It's a bit, okay? It's a joke, it's a bit.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny? Or
Yeah, I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
do you think a black American would find it funny? Do you think that black
A lot of black people find it funny. They do. They do.
should be in prison for the most part?
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood and the ghetto and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son
We could
went
go
to Chicago
anywhere.
University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west. See what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Yeah.
So what was just remind me again, the percent.
The number one thing that black people do when they accumulate wealth is to move away from black neighborhoods. That's what they do. Look at the founders of BLM. Where did they go? With the millions of dollars they extorted from Americans and well-meaning Americans, what did they do with that money? They bought property where? They bought mansions where? In white neighborhoods.
Percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
So your rate means that you're
I think the official statistic is like 1 in 22, I think. But it is an absurd like a stat if you really think about it. I think it has to do with young men. Like this probably Piers is talking about all black men, including, you know, grandfathers and old people. I think the stat in 1 in 20 is young black men. So anywhere from teenagers to I think like 20s to 30s. And regardless, like 1 in 20 is really bad. Even 1 in 100 is really bad. That's 1%. That's 1%, okay? That's still really bad. The fact that you have 1% of your population, of your demographic committing murder, that's actually still really bad. That means if you have 100,000 black people, black men, 1,000 will commit murder. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. That's a lot. That's a lot of people dead. And the more insane statistic is that black women commit violence and murder at a higher rate than black men in America. That is literally unprecedented in all of history and all demographics in any country, really, that women are committing higher rates of violence than men. But black women per capita commit more violence than white men in America, which is an insane stat to think about. So yes, like the black community, largely speaking, has a violence problem, has a crime problem. The moment you say that, they say you're racist. And I'm like, dude, the ones who are calling it out actually care about you more than the ones who shove it under the rug and excuse it. Because you are literally dying. You are literally dying. And your communities are being ripped apart. And we're supposed to accept it. And you say anything about it, you're racist.
That 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100? Or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
Sure,
this is
still a lot of people.
Well, they do,
Okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population, blacks are 13%. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax.
Most
What's with the
shootings.
interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the Blue Line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
Yeah.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And call me racist. Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes. But you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody,
Yes.
the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment.
Yeah, and this is the thing. Like, racism today doesn't mean a blind, irrational hatred for anyone of a different skin color or something like that. It doesn't mean that anymore. When they call you racist, it just means you observe certain patterns of behavior in people, in certain communities. You see that the stereotypes come from somewhere, from a place of truth, but also that you love your own people. So, like, everyone does this. Everyone does this. And, like, you talk to anyone in any ethnic community, like, they are racist. And they're more racist than white people. And I cannot believe the amount of liberals and liberal whites who are so obsessed and appalled at the idea that people can be racist. And again, that word has lost all meaning. It has lost all meaning. The problem is that people mix up racism and racial discrimination. Yeah, that's true. Like, I don't believe in discriminating, like locking up people or hurting people just because they're of a different ethnicity. That's like absurd. That's very, quite frankly, evil. But why? Why are people, for example, apprehensive to live in black neighborhoods? Do you think they're just, oh, they're different, I hate them? Or do you think maybe, for example, Asians who have a lot of beef with black people in cities because black people are the ones robbing them and assaulting them? And again, it's not all of them. It's not all black people, but it is almost all the time black people doing it. So then, like for me, again, I got my bike stolen 4 times in LA. I look at the security cam footage, and it was always a black man with the hood over his head, and you can see his face, but he was also wearing a mask. Like, what else? Like, am I supposed to think, oh no, but you can't be racist. You're not allowed to recognize that. I got threatened so many times when I lived in LA by homeless people, and 9 out of 10 times, actually no, every single time I was threatened. Like, they were coming up and they're high out of their minds and they're drugged out of their minds. They're coming up to me and saying, I'm going to kill you. It was black people. And again, it's not all of them. There's a lot of black people who hate it. But when you observe reality and live in a reality, it's like, oh, frick.
Everybody else is racist.
So early in the interview, you really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically
sure.
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. He gets fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I don't know your father. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all. Well,
then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract...
I think both are kind of like, Nick shouldn't have shared that story, I guess. But at the same time, Piers shouldn't be attacking him about it. Like, just focus on Nick. But at the same time, it is fair game because he did share that publicly on his show.
Fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you've said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out
You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say, you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low, and I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views, and I think that, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then you accept you shouldn't talk. Okay, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show, and you shouldn't tell?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
not.
So
it's fine for you to put a story out there which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed the line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Okay, yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
Will.
Yeah, I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say he ambushed me with your own words.
Whoa.
With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing.
It is a low blow, but at the same time, you have to acknowledge that anything you say on the internet can be used against you. So,
and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism, let's talk about racism. Let's leave my head out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine. You're perfectly entitled in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're racist.
They'll call you a racist regardless, right? It's the same thing with Nazi. They'll call you a Nazi regardless. They call me, a Korean immigrant, a Nazi. I am not a German dude who is a National Socialist. Like, I'm not. Clearly, you can tell I'm not. But they'll call you it regardless. So
people can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it. So I want to play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Do you stand by
Absolutely.
that?
Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them.
He has nothing
Absolutely.
to say.
They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality. Redlining or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it a friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people, they approach strangers. It's a robbery crew, and they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged, or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so it's
yeah, and that's the thing. It's better to be perceived as racist than to die trying to prove that you're not racist. It's better to be perceived as this racist person who hates people when in actuality you're just trying to look out for yourself, your own life, and also your family's life. There is nothing wrong with having pattern recognition and seeing, hey, these people are proportionally, especially when they present themselves in a certain way, they're very unkempt. They don't look very, very well. They're not orderly. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm just going to be a little further away from them. And if they get offended, then they get offended, but it's better than potentially losing your life. And again, things like Irina Zarutska is very radicalizing because she did nothing wrong except sit in a bus and she got stabbed to death, and all the people around her, they just didn't care. They just didn't care. Great place to pause at, yeah. Yeah, like just making conversations the microaggression, it's so ridiculous. And they cry victim all the time. And I don't hate all black people. I don't hate black people. No, I don't think anyone truly does. If you do, like I don't rock with you. I don't vibe with you. But there is a serious conversation to be had that, hey, this community is responsible for most of the murders and violence in this country. And there's nothing wrong with not wanting to live in that squalor and crime and violence. How does that make you a hateful person? It's ridiculous. And this is why liberals always love the stranger whom they have nothing in common with, whose face and name they don't know, than their own family. It's liberalism is an ideology of brokenness and self-hatred. It really is.
How do you feel about mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
They commit the majority of mass shootings in schools, but the majority of mass shootings is actually committed by black people. If you consider mass shootings, three or more people. Because why? Because it's mostly from gang violence, from mass shootings. But like this is the rhetorical play that they do to undermine and ignore the prevalence of crime and murder in the black community.
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's a difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime, and it's a different.
Zombie great. If a crow shows pattern recognition, he's an intelligent creature. If a human does it, it's hateful. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with wanting to preserve yourself and protect your family from potential dangers. There's nothing wrong with it.
Proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men.
Also radicalized, a lot of them trans, a lot of them radicalized by left-wing extremism. You conveniently leave that out too.
And I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools. Should they avoid?
Is my mic working?
Avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No. Okay. Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population, and everybody understands that.
Look, you talk to anyone who goes to school with a large black population, who's the one engaging in fights in school majority of the time? Who are the ones who are causing havoc and disruptions? Who is the ones who like gang up on vulnerable kids in bathrooms? It is black students. And then so like we just keep there's video after video after video after case after case after case after case of young black teens attacking students. Okay, so if a student doesn't want to associate with that and not get beat up in school, is that so wrong for them? And then why? It's their problem. It is more problematic that the student doesn't want to be brutalized or victimized than it is that these black students are going around beating up kids. Like this is where morality has been so perverted under the liberal framework, the modern liberal framework, where it is more problematic to say, hey, I've seen a pattern of behavior from these group of people at school. I don't want to get involved. I just want to go to school, learn, do my activities, and leave. That's more problematic than the ones who are beating up students and getting suspended for it. Like, do you guys see how this game is played? It is so stupid. It is so stupid. We don't need to adopt this framework. We don't need to adopt this framework. We don't need to bend the knee. We don't need to bend over backwards to try to justify the fact that we're not hateful people and we're not actually racist, because they will call you racist regardless. But we don't have to adopt their framework. We don't.
2/3 of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's a question.
I've just told you. It's 60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference.
No, what I'm saying to you is, by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I guess I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools. Why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same for black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion of the population.
Are you hearing it? No.
I think that's what your statistics is. A lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of baloney. And when you say, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about...
Dude, Piers, you're missing the question, Piers. He's asking for the whole population of white people. In the same way, you can't use a statistic that talks about the proportion of all black people, their crime rates, and then compare that to mass shootings, the proportion of white people committing mass shootings instead of the proportion of white mass shooters over the entire white population. You can't do that. Piers,
the same.
No, tell me the number, and
yet the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care.
Yes, the majority of mass shootings in school shootings, the majority of school shootings are committed by white people, but the majority of mass shootings, depending on how you categorize it, of course, but 3 or more people shot and killed, or 4 more people shot and killed are black people.
You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind.
And again, mass shootings are awful. School shootings are awful. And I think school shooting is one of the worst things you can do because you are targeting vulnerable children. You are. And I'm going to just say it. I'm just going to say it. There is a conversation to be had about how easy it is in certain states for people to just walk in and buy a gun. And then people say the solution is for school to have security, school to have armed security. I don't know, man. I think that's fine. That can be a possible solution, but I don't know. I don't want to live in a society where kids have to go through security and metal detectors every time they walk into school. I'm sorry. I think kids should be able to go into school not afraid of being shot to death. And I don't know. I might sound like a liberal, but I don't think school shootings are good. I hate school shootings. But it is a little too easy in certain states for people to just walk in, buy a gun, walk out, and go to school and shoot kids. I do think there is, and maybe this is me, the Korean in me, and I used to be a very, very pro 2A gun-toting guy. But when you think about the Second Amendment was for Americans and Christian Americans. So again, John Adams said this, that our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for a people of any other. It is wholly inadequate for anyone else. If it's not Christians, predominantly, who love the Lord, who submit to Christ's kingship, then what do you think people will do with the Second Amendment? Those who hate Christ, what do you think people will do with their right to bear arms? They will, in the case of school shootings, kill children. They will, in the case of these gang violent wars and things like that, these gang wars and turf wars and things like that, they will kill each other. So is it super based that violent criminals or people who are growing up in the worst communities and the worst areas of America, they can exercise their freedom to bear arms? I don't know. And the thing is, I do want to get to a place where we can freely bear arms and have the right to bear arms freely. But you can't have that unless you have a moral populace. You can't have that without an orderly society. And right now, we don't have an orderly society. We have dysfunction, brokenness, families falling apart, divorce rate like 50%, fatherlessness 75% in the black community, drugs rampant, people addicted to pornography and addicted to their parasocial relationships with online creators. Like what the society we're living in right now is awful and dysfunctional. We have to have a conversation about the Constitution that was written for a specific people, for American Christians. Does it apply? Does the Second Amendment apply to Islamic jihadists? I love the Constitution, I do, but realistically speaking, what will people who hate God and hate America do with the Second Amendment? They will kill innocent people, okay? Like, what do you think they'll do with it? So then, is it fair to say, hey, we should have some sort of restrictions on firearm purchasing? I think that's fair. I think it is fair. Call me a sellout, call me a whatever. I think it's fair because we don't live in a moral society. And I think governance should be done with prudence and wisdom depending on the health of a society and the morality of a people. And right now, we live in a morally bankrupt society in the first world. 2A was made for the people. Ghost, yes. Who were the people of America? They were for Christians. Why do you think that states had blasphemy laws? We'll get into this later if we have time on the stream. I made a lot of people mad online that America was a Christian nation. It was fundamentally a Christian nation. It was fundamentally a Christian nation. It is for the people of America and their posterity. Who were the people of America then? Were they third world immigrants? Were they trans activists? Were they furries? No, they were God-fearing, Bible-observing, mostly Protestant, but we have Catholics too, of course, Christians who were from Europe. So what undergirds someone's behavior is their worldview, which is informed by their theology, their religious beliefs. And so if we have a society where a lot of people hate Christ and hate his commandments, what do you think they'll do with the Second Amendment? I don't know. Call me radical. Call me radical. You said it was only made for Christians. Yes, the people were Christian. So it was made for the people who were Christian. And this is not like, this is where people say like, oh, like America was built on an idea. What was the idea? The idea was self-governance and a constitutional republic and these liberties, these ordered liberties for the people of America who were what? They were Christian. In these states, they had blasphemy laws where it was illegal for you to deny the divinity of Christ and to say anything bad about Christ. Even in New York in the 1800s, there were people who were arrested and charged for calling Jesus a bastard. So, for the people of America who are moral and religious, who are Christian, that's what the Bill of Rights were written for. You can call me an extremist for saying that, but that's just observable fact. And I don't think the founders ever envisioned America to be so secular and so anti-Christian. Because again, what are people going to do with the Second Amendment? What are people going to do with the First Amendment if they're not Christian? They will deceive others. They will hurt others. They will blaspheme the Lord. This is why we have certain restrictions even on speech. Are you allowed to send death threats? No, you shouldn't be. What benefit are death threats? There's none. Anyways, that's my thoughts. I just don't think we should live in, I don't want to live in a society. I don't think we should live in a society. And America never did live in a society where you had to have armed security and metal detectors for schools. I don't know. If that's what it takes to keep our kids safe, that's fine. But I think we have to have a serious conversation about the access for people to just own firearms. Whereas before, it was moral people who understood the weight and responsibility of the right to bear arms. Now, anyone in certain states with constitutional carry can just walk in and buy a gun and leave. And again, I'm not liberals. I don't agree with liberals on this position, but I do think there is merit in saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't allow radicalized trans people to be able to walk into a store, buy a gun, walk out, and start targeting a school. I don't think the Constitution is a religious text. Let's just say that. I believe that the Word of God triumphs the Constitution, and I believe the Constitution, again, is good. It's great. I love the Constitution, but it was made for a people, and that people is becoming, those kind of people, the American people, the posterity of America from the founding stock of America is becoming a minority in this country.
This argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita. And people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality. And everybody sees past that.
I see you sisters in the chat. I love you. I love you. Yeah. We love women. We are a woman-respecting stream, okay? We are a woman-respecting space. Okay? It doesn't mean that we don't call out the sins or the faults of women or the behaviors of modern women. But I love godly, feminine, lovely women. I think they're pleasant to be around. I think they are incredible. So, I don't know. They say, you hate women, you repel women. Nah, shut up. You don't even know me, bro. You don't know me. Women love me. Women love me.
We all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment. People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment. And we see what it's like. And the threat, the danger in terms of probability it's not even comparable. And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed?
That's crazy. I didn't know that stat. That's actually wild.
By autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in the city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
No, I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
Black and white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process.
I think the stat is in Chicago, every 6 months, there are more black people who die than all the black people who died under Jim Crow combined, which is an insane stat to think about how bad the crime has gotten in our cities.
Process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say...
He didn't say all black people. He said in general. He said in general. And just, like, I don't know, man. It's trying to... It's that meme, right? It's impossible to talk to leftists because all they do is pretend like they don't understand.
I don't want to be living anywhere near black people. They already have heard you say I'm a racist, so they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot, and it's true. I mean, they are a largely in the city in Chicago, the South Side, the West Side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable.
Again, Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color.
Because the word racist doesn't mean anything, and we just call anyone racist. If you observe any differences or a pattern behavior between people, amongst groups of people, you're called a racist. It doesn't mean anything anymore.
Which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians.
Everyone does this,
I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews, Chinese, black people, Hispanics.
Yes, talk to any Korean immigrant parents, okay? Most of them, what they think about their child marrying a non-Korean. Do you think they're always celebrating it? Yeah, maybe the liberal ones are. No, but like, seriously, ask any Asian immigrant parent what they think about their kid marrying a non-Asian, okay? Ask them what they think. Do you think they're like, wow, yes, I am so in favor of it? No. Is it hateful? No. Why? Because it is a general thing for people to be among their people and to have family among their people and have their children and their grandchildren be their people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not
Let's say
really.
for the sake
Not
of argument,
really.
sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally,
For the sake of argument, we
the
can
very
say
person
sure.
you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic. Of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous
It's
Americans
not
and
white, though,
Europeans.
is it? It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
Not
a
really. You just keep saying you only want to live in a white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally got Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here, though. But I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing.
Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my
This is where probably it is one of Nick's weak points, where he constantly talks about how interracial marriage is bad, but then he is, in certain regards, he is a fourth Mexican, right? And so a lot of people, again, I don't think it's a valid argument, but it is something, it is an attack that liberals can lodge against him to say, hey, like, why are you against interracial marriage? You are literally the product of one. Doesn't that make you a hypocrite? And again, it's a powerful rhetorical tool. It's the same thing that people use against Koreans. Again, it's a powerful rhetorical tool for the average normie, where they say, hey, aren't you a Korean immigrant? Why do you hate immigration? And of course, there's always a response. There's a proper response for me as a Korean saying, hey, I want America to be America. I don't want America to be an unrecognizable country that transforms into the third world. And I fundamentally want to keep America America, but also as a guest in America, I want to keep America Christian, like it traditionally has always been. And I don't believe America is an economic zone. I believe it is a distinct home to a distinct people with a distinct history. I don't hate American history. I think American history is awesome. Not to excuse the faults of American history, but American excellence is something that has advanced the world. And I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm not ashamed to say that I don't want America to become Korea as a Korean immigrant. I want America to be America. So, but it is a powerful rhetorical tool.
friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not. And non-white people love my show.
How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one, who you know. Sneeko being
Ye is interesting. Sneeko's like half Asian, isn't he?
another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. He said, so you use the N-word. I said, yeah. He goes, well, when niggas are being niggas. I said, so true. That's so true. So they feel like they're in complete agreement with me.
What does that mean?
It means that even black people
What does that mean? Piers acting like he doesn't know what that means. Give me a break.
know how black people can behave. Even black people understand it. And they know that it doesn't come from a place of, when you use the word aversion, that's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. You know, I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other.
Yeah.
And black people.
This is true. Again, this is true. This is why I can go anywhere in the world and they will recognize me as an Asian. And they'll say, Korean? You know how many times I've traveled to foreign countries and they've go like, oh, Korean? I was in Colombia this past summer with my church for a mission trip, you guys saw. And literally, Coreano, Coreano, Coreano. Hey, eres coreano? Oh, me amo coreano. Like, they love Koreans. I'm like, okay, so it clearly is not just skin deep, okay? It matters to people, where you come from, right? So
People know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other.
How many cringe K-pop comments did you get? Dude, there's so many Colombians who came up to me and like started taking pictures with me, and they're like, oh, like, can I take a photo, un photo, un photo? And I was like, yeah, let's bring it in, not knowing that they're taking pictures with a provocative right-wing commentator who loves the Lord. Of course, I love the Lord, but very provocative figure on the internet. I mean, you style yourself very much as a Korean. I mean, yeah, but I am Korean. Even if I didn't style myself as a Korean, like, people would know. Like, look at my features, chat. Look at my features. Do I look black to you? Do I look Mexican to you? Do I look Indian? Do I look white? No, I look Korean because it means something.
Way, if you see black people, that is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this.
Lethal, Wes just called you Chinese. I think I saw that video where he called me Chinese. It's fine. I don't care. I don't really care when people crack these jokes. It is what it is. Lacking the plastic surgery I see in popular Korean people. Yeah, I don't have plastic surgery. I've never gone plastic surgery. I don't think I ever would. I don't want to. Not that I ever would, but yeah. I like the way that I look, chat. I don't know if you care to say anything about my appearance, but I like the way that I look. I like the way that God created me. I like the genetics I inherited from my parents and my ancestors. I am very satisfied with how I look and how God created me. So I don't know. This is one of the biggest faults in Korea, where they're so materialistic and they're so focused on appearance to the extent where it's the plastic surgery capital of the world. And it's really sad. It's unfortunate. I wish Koreans would be much more accepting of how they look and be okay with differences in appearance. But, you know, it is the way that it is what it is. Why do you look unsure if you've ever had plastic surgery? I'm not unsure. I've never done plastic surgery, okay, chat? I've never done any work. Like I never got my nose done. I don't even know. What do you even do with your nose? What is it called? Like rhinoplasty or something? Like my double eyelids, though it's small, it's natural, okay? I never got work done on my face. Like I've never done plastic surgery. So yeah, I don't know. It is sad to me that so many Koreans, they're not okay with, like, it's okay if you're not the best looking person. It's okay. And then, you know, it will be a hierarchy of beauty, and that's okay. There's certain people who are taller and more attractive, and that's okay. And I know that gets you advantages in society, but like, just because you're not as quote unquote attractive physically as another person, it doesn't make you any less valuable. I don't know. Like, I do think outer appearance matters to a certain extent, but it's gotten way too out of hand in Korea. Belly button surgery? Ew, what is that? What the heck is belly button surgery? I always recognize most Korean men who have a very similar hairstyle too. Yeah, it's like, it's a simple hairstyle and it gets the job done. So anyways, enough of that. Let's get back to the interview.
I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
Proportionally, far fewer.
How many? How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it
No,
out.
can we move on from this race stuff?
Exercised by that one story, which was horrific for the record. Absolutely horrific. And should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offenses.
We have a lot
should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience. Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on, and I would add to that, you know, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After
how many times has it been perpetrated by white people?
Well, hang on, let me finish my point.
But white people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is of course,
I never said white people don't do it.
deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either know, you neither know nor care.
Vivian Fire, thanks for the follow. How are you?
You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. Well, once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability.
Yeah,
if they're
no
rude,
accountability.
If they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you.
100%.
And so even
you guys remember white supremacy is to blame for blacks attacking Asians. White people are to blame. They're the reason why black people are attacking Asians.
Telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence, and that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media.
So just to be clear, you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
And you're a narcissist.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Turn this around on
you're
me.
ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I am kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. I'm not saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So he's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome.
I personally, I don't know if I'd associate with myself with Kanye, but it is, well, I wouldn't call him a victim. He's still like multimillionaire, but he was canceled severely. Was it last year, 2 years ago, for his comments?
Of what you just said, you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life.
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then you know. He's nothing but polite, considerate.
He seemed very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also...
You keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black?
What the freak? Are you black?
I apologize right now to you.
I'm giving you our time, but I do want to finish my point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. he is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about
This is like kind of similar to, I don't know if you guys know Bryson Gray. Bryson Gray and I are not on good terms right now. But Bryson Gray is similar to that, where Bryson is very provocative and very strong online, but in person, he's actually like really, really, really chill. Like I've hung out with Bryson so many times, and he's a really great guy. He really is. He's good. He's a good guy. He's good to his wife, Shekinah. Shekinah is great. She's lovely as well. But Bryson Gray is kind of similar to that, where he's very provocative and bombastic online and in public, but in private, he's actually like a really chill guy. He's very considerate, very generous. So, yeah, he and I are not on good terms right now. We have to reconcile a bit. We got into some beef online, but yeah, like I imagine Ye to be the same way. I've never met him, so I don't know, but there are people like that where it's like in public they're very bombastic and strong and aggressive, but then when you actually interact with them in person, like they're very, very fun to be with, chill, very cordial, very courteous, and very generous. And that's actually Bryson Gray. So yeah, I met Ryan Kinnell in person. Yeah, and that's like a lot of geeks and gamers too. Like the geeks and gamers crowd, online, I played Mario Kart with them a lot. They just like scream at each other, like "F you, what the," and then they go really hard against the libs online. But you hang out with them in person, and they're so chill. Like Jeremy is awesome. Jeremy is seriously one of he's seriously a gem. Like he is so awesome. Of course, Jay and Krista and all of them, they're all really fun to hang out with, and they're really awesome. Like very considerate, very kind, just really, really great group of people. And so, yeah, I don't know.
Killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay. He's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back and talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jewish people, and indeed what Ye said about the same subject matter. It's award-winning scientists. That's your Fuentes. And be part of the conversation, demanding truth and accountability.
Speaking of Angel, are you guys going to watch David? I'm actually excited for David. I'm going to go watch it in theaters when it comes out. I'm actually really excited for it. We do need more Christian films. It's just my only concern is that Angel Studios is owned by Mormons, and I love Mormons. They're very polite. They're very cordial and fun to talk to, but yeah, they deny the divinity of Christ, so it's hard to call them Christian.
Okay, back with Nick Fuentes. Let's just turn to anti-Semitism. In your interview with Stephen Crowder last week, you answered emphatically that you don't hate all Jews. Is that correct? That's your position?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Let's play this clip.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact. We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true.
By the way, anytime anyone says like jewelry, I always think they're saying jewelry. I don't know.
I can prove it. I can show you. I can name the names. I can show you the paper trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say you have this opposition to world Jewry, I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, that's the Asian me. Loving the jewelry. Honestly, for me, though, I don't really have any interest in jewelry. If you guys notice, I don't wear any bling or anything, so I don't know. I've just never found it enticing.
Do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the State of World Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry address.
What do you mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And
so this subject I know is very, very volatile. So I recommend everyone just watch it with, I guess, like an open mind, because for me too, I used to be very, very pro-Zionist, and I've been to Israel too. Like if you guys know, you see on my profile on Instagram, I've been to Israel. I had a great time. I won't say I hated it, but there is something to be said about how, for example, Jews always boast about they were the forefront of gay rights and civil rights and feminism and all these left-wing causes. They're the number one funders of open borders and Marxism in our country. And they brag about it. But then the moment we notice it, we're an anti-Semite. It's like, hey, like, wait, you are funding all the things, and you were at the forefront of all the things that kind of made America the mess that it is today. Wait, why should we want that? Oh, don't notice, you anti-Semite. Like, but you just literally bragged about it. In the same way, the World Jewish Congress has that annual keynote about world jewelry, and we're not allowed to be like, hey, like, what is this? And of course, Nick's rhetoric can go far at times and things like that. I get it, but you know, I don't hate Jews. I don't hate anyone, but I think there is something interesting. Like, even like, I used to be so apprehensive to the fact that, like, oh, Jews own Hollywood. I'm like, just shut up, man. Like, Jews don't own Hollywood. And then you look into it, and they're the ones who founded Hollywood, actually. It was Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. And it's like, oh, wait, what? And it's not a conspiracy. This is all available information, right? So, I don't know.
So where they reside in Israel, the United States, or Europe.
I'm not anti-Semitic, but it is undeniable, the theological conflict between Jews and Christians. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. There is an undeniable conflict because Judaism rejects Christ as the Messiah. But we know that Christ is the Messiah. He is the promised Messiah, prophesied in the scriptures, and he is God. So even on a theological level, too, there is opposition. And for me, one of the biggest waking moments was when Dennis Prager said that watching porn is fine and is preferable to committing actual adultery. But as Christians, we know that watching porn is adultery. Lusting after a woman who is not your own is like, that is adultery and that is infidelity. But he said there's nothing in the Jewish scriptures that prohibits that. And I'm like, whoa. Like, if a husband is watching porn behind his wife's back, like, that should be condemned totally. And then he needs help. That is by nature cheating on his wife. And I know maybe some red pill people will hate me for that, but like, that's just the reality. And yes, maybe the wife is at quote unquote, like, it contributes to his loneliness because there's a lot of times where wives reject sex for their husbands. But you still shouldn't be watching porn. You shouldn't. And like, that was a big waking moment for me because I was like, wait, whoa, like, we don't even agree on what constitutes infidelity. Like, the family is the bedrock of civilization. Marriage is the fundamental political institution in any society. So I think that's where I was like, whoa, wait, what's going on here?
Elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect, it's democratic, all the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent proportionally the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across the world. And so that's a real thing. And I didn't make that up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like I said in that clip. I read what they write. I read their books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as it's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized.
Yeah, Nick has spoke out. I forgot which interview it was, but he did say, I think it was with Tucker. It was with Tucker. He was saying how it's destroying society.
And they have a national self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
I've met people who do that, that believe the same thing. More concerning, I know a woman that said, as long as the guy comes home to his wife, it doesn't matter what he does on his own time. Yasuke? Yasuke? What is Yasuke doing here? Are you a troll? Thanks for the follow. Yeah, no, June, yeah, it's so true. It's not okay what he does. Average Christ enjoyer? Based Yasuke. We like this Yasuke, chat. We like this Yasuke. But yeah, no, it doesn't matter what he does on his own time. Like, it does matter what he does on his own time. A husband is supposed to be faithful to his wife.
So if you don't hate any...
I feel like women that say that do it to excuse what they do in their own time. Yeah, absolutely. Did you guys see that video of that woman who was pregnant and said, oh, like, I, wore these clothes just in case for I forgot which male artist it was, to a concert, and they're like, oh, and all the comments were like, I'm a married woman too, and I'm always open to have this. It's like, dude, like, humiliating your husband publicly like that is so unbelievable.
Dude, what do you like about them?
I deny the historical existence of the other one. Based.
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is a Messiah.
He's right.
They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years, and they've been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated, and that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way. It doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
Well, that's weird because you said this.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees. Have we ever been friends? Not since Saul was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
That's true, by the way. For me, I just read Martin Luther's book on the Jews, just saying the father of the Reformation. I'm a Protestant, right? So I hold Martin Luther to high regards. I do believe that the schism that a lot of Catholics blame Martin Luther for was he was forcefully excommunicated. He wanted to reform the Catholic Church. He was excommunicated. So he had no choice but to leave because they kicked him out. But just read about what he had to say, okay? And it's the same thing where they accuse us of being racist and anti-Semitic. It is just about a recognition of behavior and how they organize. That's what it is. Yeah, no, it's so true. It's hilarious how he tried to convert Jews for so long and eventually gave up and wrote that book in frustration. That's really what it is. Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, Nick will probably explain himself, but when he says like Jews and Christians have never been friends, it's like we've never been allies, broadly speaking. But it doesn't mean that you can't be friends with someone with Jewish descent. It's ridiculous. I also have tons of Jewish friends. And I don't hate Jews.
The Jews and Christians have never been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations.
Got it.
Not saying every individual Christian. And of course, there have been Christians. There have been Christian converts to Judaism, Jewish converts to Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples.
I'm a Catholic like you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute.
Piers Morgan is Catholic? Chad, did I hear that right?
Christian. You're nodding your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples.
I'm a Catholic like you, and I have many.
What? Piers Morgan is Catholic? How is he Catholic? What? I didn't know Piers Morgan was Catholic. Are you kidding me? Wait, if he's Catholic, why is he so liberal? Like, he's not woke liberal, but he is pretty darn liberal. Later, he denies Catholic doctrine on women being priests. Oh, okay. So he's one of those, like, nominal Catholics who don't actually go to Mass, who don't celebrate the Eucharist, right? He's probably one of those, and he doesn't actually fall into line with Catholic doctrine. Yeah, it's just
Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute.
I didn't know Piers was Catholic.
Jews and Christians have never been friends ever. I'm like, well, you have Jewish friends. I have Jewish friends. We're both Catholics. Therefore, we're Christians. So it doesn't really quite add up.
Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Gavin Newsom are all Catholics. Yeah, but you know they're not actually Catholics, right? I guess Piers Morgan is one of them.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand.
The reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular, the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I'm going to play you this clip.
People talk about, well, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow, because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why. It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
You think that's funny?
It's funny. It's amusing what you're doing because, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
I do, actually. I do, because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon? Is it too soon to make jokes?
How many people do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number? 6 million, something like that?
So 8 million? You can see that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust.
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
Wait, have you heard that Bonnie Blue has got arrested in Indonesia? No, I didn't hear that. Really? What did she get arrested for? Being a whore? Because Indonesia is a very big Muslim country, so if you try to do that there, you'll definitely get arrested. But I don't know. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about the Holocaust. The Holocaust was bad. The Holocaust was bad. But the reality is the Holocaust today is not used as, because there's so many genocides that happen in history, so many that were atrocious and really awful. Because I hate genocide. I think genocide is awful, and targeting a group of people and just killing them, slaughtering them en masse is very, very evil, like unthinkably evil. And as a Christian, I don't condone it. But yeah, the Muslims did to the Armenians. Like, we don't does the Armenian genocide hold the same weight as the Holocaust? Does what the Mongols did all throughout Asia, how they killed millions, tens of millions of people, innocent people? Does that hold the same weight as the Holocaust? And it doesn't. The reason why is because the Holocaust is used as a bludgeon. It's used as a bludgeon to silence you and to call you an anti-Semite and say, hey, you are causing what caused the Holocaust. You are literally Hitler. If you, for example, criticize, any Jew and the actions of Jews in this country or abroad. And once you break free of that, you're able to see things a lot more objectively. And the reason why I think there's a lot of people who genuinely hate Jews, and I don't condone that. But the reason why a lot of people make fun of the Holocaust is because of the institutional power it has and the stranglehold it has over the conscience of the West, to the point where they use it not only as a shield for criticism against Jews, but they also use it as shield for minority groups, right? You are literally Hitler if you think you should stop immigration, right? Ilhan Omar called Stephen Miller, who is a Jew, by the way, is one of the good ones, I guess. But she called Ilhan Omar the same as Hitler by saying that third world immigrants who cannot assimilate into our country have no place in our country, which is an objective fact. It's not a hateful fact. It's just an objective fact. And she said that it's the same rhetoric that Nazis used to genocide Jews. And so, again, it's used as a bludgeon. It's used as emotional blackmail that's seared. It's seared on the conscience of the American people. This is why we have so much media and so many pictures and movies and things like that about the people who were genocided and killed in the Holocaust. But there's nothing about the Armenian genocide. There's nothing about what the Mongols did. There's nothing about what the Soviets did. Joseph Stalin killed more people than Hitler did. All of that, it's just not there. It's not seared on our consciousness. And I say this all the time, but communism should hold the same weight, if not more, moral weight than Nazism, because they killed more people, they starved more people, and it is objectively an ideology that destroys and kills people and families and drives God out of society. And I'm not saying Nazism is good, but there's a reason why in the American conscience and in the Western consciousness, the Holocaust holds so much more weight than any other genocide. It's because it's used as a bludgeon to shut up right-wingers who love their country and want to protect that which is good. So
why have you doubted the numbers in the past?
I'll tell you why. I really think that every death is a tragedy, however many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative, and I've read some of the conspiracy theories. And to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But what's interesting about this is in many countries, it's not even legal to talk about it. And that's really where my interest in the Holocaust begins and sort of ends, to tell you the truth, is that if you wanted to question the number, you would be put in jail in about, 17 or 18 European countries.
Which is insane, right? Why can't you question history? If you're not allowed to question history, who is it that controls you? And that's where a lot of people get so sucked into that. If we were just hey, the Holocaust was bad and genocide is bad and killing people en masse and slaughtering them en masse is evil and bad, fine. Yes, but history is always debated. But then if there's one event in history that's not allowed to be debated, it's people are going to look into it. And then people are going to constantly question the narrative. So with the internet, it's hard for people. The Streisand effect is even more amplified with the internet, of course. But the fact that you're not allowed to question it at all is ridiculous. We should be able to have conversations about historical events. We should. And we shouldn't be we look at this historical event and we should do it. That's not what you should do at all. But I think it's okay because so much of history that I've been taught in America in our schools was not factually incorrect, but it was given to us in a different way that made you think that, for example, America was a secular nation. That's what I was taught in school, that the First Amendment was so that Christianity would not be instated in religion, separation of church and state. This is what I learned in school. And you start to realize, yes, separation of church and state was in a document, was in a very niche letter to the Danbury Baptist from Thomas Jefferson, but it was never actually, as a matter of legal theory, part of American constitutionalism. And so it's wait, whoa, what else did I not learn? oh, frig, that most of the states had blasphemy laws and you had to be a Christian to hold public office, that schools all had prayer and reading, Bible reading, and they said they opened up the school day with the Lord's Prayer every day. They don't teach you that. They don't teach you that. And so, people will be curious and people will seek out the history they want to learn. But the fact that you can't criticize it or even question the official narrative, which is bonkers. It's bonkers to me. It's bonkers. And the official narrative, I am still under the impression, I believe the official narrative, but the effect that it has and the stranglehold it has over the West is really concerning.
And I think that's really the more interesting conversation, which is that this is almost like a religious dogma in the West. No other genocide, no other atrocity is treated like this. Could you imagine if in the United States they said the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza is 100,000, and if you don't say that, you're going to jail, you're banned on X, you can't have a job? That's the part that's totally insane. And a lot of people, they can't even make up their minds. I think it's actually done a disservice. If your goal, and I'm not saying you as Piers Morgan, but if you're an advocate for awareness about this, if your goal is to convince everybody that this is the way the Holocaust happened, I think the last thing you want to do is say that everyone that disagrees is in jail and is banned and you're not allowed to say it. So there's really been no open debate about the subject since the scholarship started to be produced about 60 years ago.
There is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered. Even the Nazis in the trials after the war confirmed the numbers. The amount of documentation that was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis to destroy.
Just chat. Thanks for the follow.
That was
How's it
saved
going?
and preserved and used for.
Conversation being overregulated should not be a validation of a conspiracy theory either. This is something that right-wingers also fail to understand. I totally agree. But this is why we have to have an open debate about it, right?
Trials of historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very clear idea of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that, which may be news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could even be higher than that.
Well, it could be higher. That is
I think
true.
it's at least. I think you're right. It is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But it could be 100 times more than that.
Okay, the people are going to be.
But let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on. Let that speak for itself. But you don't see, your show is called Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yeah.
But the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think everything at least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial laws. I don't think people should be in prison.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized. Right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you have an employer, they can make a view about whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized. It's my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in the United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been...
I think recently there was someone jailed and I just saw it on X. There was someone sentenced to 6 months in jail, I think, or 6 years in jail for racist memes on X in the UK. It's ridiculous.
Frog march to prison cells for stuff they put on social media. Right? So yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our...
Yeah, 60,000 plus in jail in the UK right now for offensive social media posts. Insane. Absolutely insane.
Exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. There will be people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that, because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. When I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives and I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there's never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide? Because you can say on your show, well, I'm personally against Holocaust denial laws, yet they still persist and the social consequences still persist. And I think that is the anomaly. And people have to wonder, okay, why is it that way? And what I said in that clip is the reason the Holocaust casts a long shadow is because it confers a political benefit upon organized Jewry. That is what they always fall back on. They cannot be criticized. They cannot be named. They cannot be talked about, lest there be another Holocaust. And no other tragedy is treated that way. And no other ethnic group has a get out of jail free card. Just play that. Anti-Semitism and Holocaust. You can do whatever you want and defend all your actions. That's the part that people are getting upset with. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like for me too, how many people actually officially died in the Holocaust is no interest to me because I just think any sort of genocide like that is evil. It's wrong. So the official numbers like that's not what really I'm concerned concerned with personally. I'm just concerned with, for example, these Holocaust denial laws, the fact that we're not even allowed to question it, and the fact that it's used as a bludgeon by anyone and everyone to emotionally blackmail right-wingers and conservatives into saying, if you don't accept the dispossession of your own country, and if you're not okay feeling like a foreigner in your own country, you're a literal Nazi, you're literally Hitler, and you want genocide. And that's the power it has over the consciousness in the West, and that's what I have a problem with. That's what I have a problem with.
I don't know any right-minded person who believes that Jewish people weaponize the Holocaust for their own personal get-out-of-jail-free or whatever you call it.
You don't know anyone that does that?
Come on, Piers. Ilhan Omar just did it yesterday on CNN, live, about Stephen Miller, who's a literal Jew, calling him a Nazi.
Well, I'm sure there are some people that do that. It's such a ridiculous generalization. You know, the truth is that most Jewish people have lost relatives in the Holocaust. If I want to play...
It's the same thing. You know, leftists do this all the time with Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, and they call Benjamin Netanyahu Hitler. And it's like, dude, he's a Jew. And that doesn't excuse what Israel is doing and has done to Gaza and to Palestinians, and especially Palestinian Christians. But how is he a Nazi? He's Jewish. And if your whole point is about Nazis hating Jews, but then you call Jews Nazis, like, how does that make any sense? And it's used, again, as a rhetorical tool to have you submit to whatever ideology or movement they're espousing, because the Holocaust carries so much emotional baggage and weight.
I want to play you two clips. One is where you talk about Adolf Hitler.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, you know, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys?
I'm actually interested to see what Nick has to say about this.
Really fucking cool.
Do you regret saying that?
Saying a fact? No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Yes, I do. And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest.
This is the problem, you see. It's a bit like when you just say, I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic.
Here's the thing. Hitler was an evil person, but you can also objectively say, like, wow, he took Germany from being one of, like, the most abused and exploited and poorest countries in the West because of post-World War I. And he took it to being one of the world's greatest superpowers in like a decade, okay? There is something to be said about that. He was deeply charismatic. He was deeply effective. He was a great political leader. It's just he used it for bad and evil. But you can acknowledge that he was a great leader while also acknowledging he wasn't a good one. He was an evil one. And it's the same thing with Stalin. I know Nick said he liked Stalin, and I forgot which interview it was, I wanted to see what he meant by it. And it's like, yeah, he's like, Stalin was objectively evil, but what he did with the Soviet Union was very impressive. And you can say that about anyone. Again, let's take Genghis Khan for example. Evil man. And how many women did he impregnate? But what he did with the Mongol Empire was impressive, right? So you don't have to acknowledge historical leaders and historical figures as good, but you can acknowledge the objective fact that they were great. So I wouldn't say in any way like what Nick said is like pretty awesome and pretty based, but I think we can also acknowledge that historical figures were great and they were awesome, and there's a reason why, and they're interesting because of that, without also saying that they weren't good and they were evil and their methods were evil. Yeah, Palpatine. Palpatine.
If you're a Jew,
yeah, kind of Palpatine's like that too. You think about Star Wars, the Empire, okay? They're evil. But what they did with the Intergalactic Empire was pretty like, wow, like how'd you do that? He 8 times steel production in a 10-year period or so and had a massive population boom despite death toll numbers. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like these are historical figures, okay? These are historical figures. You can analyze and say, hey, what made a historical figure so influential and so great, while also saying, hey, they were a bad person.
This person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking, because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK.
Yeah, some of the greatest villains in fiction, but also history, right? They were geniuses. They were charismatic, they were very, very capable. And there's nothing wrong with saying that and acknowledging that. I think we can be adults in a room and say, hey, yes, they were evil. They were not good people, but they were great people. And unfortunately, they used their giftings and their talents for evil. But wow, like how did they do what they did? How did they do what they did? How did they convince the masses and mobilize the masses in such a way? Like that's okay to acknowledge, right? And that's okay to look into. Yes, you can be genius or cool, but also be evil at the same time. Absolutely. And the fact that like if you think someone was very talented and very influential and like very gifted at what they did as a political leader, that somehow makes you a proponent of all their worst ideas is just preposterous. It's so stupid. It is a deeply unserious way of thinking and a deeply unserious way of having conversations.
A very eminent journalist here and author who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because you also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being 1 out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather.
By the way, speaking about like old republic, like think about the Roman Empire, for example. The Roman Empire was evil. A lot of it was evil. And what the Romans did to Christians, especially the early days of the church, deeply, deeply evil. Think about Emperor Nero, okay? Think about what the Romans did in the Colosseums, where they literally had lions rip apart Christians to shreds for being Christian, for proclaiming Christ, for saying Christ is king. But then, men thinking about the Roman Empire is a meme. It is a meme that no one has a problem with. So again, you think about, okay, if you guys put that into perspective, you can see how, right? The way that people talk about the Holocaust and Hitler and Nazi Germany, it is so incongruent with, and it's not consistent at all with the rest of history. It is a specific event used to blackmail people and used as a bludgeon to hit people over the head to say, if you don't agree with me, if you disagree with me, you want people to die and be genocided and put into gas chambers. So, like exactly. Yeah, retcon. Romans are a good example because we pretty much only have good things to say about them. They were evil in so many counts, and especially to Christians. They were so brutal. They were so brutal. Why don't we hate them with the same disdain we do the Nazis? Because, again, this has been seared into the American conscience intentionally by brainwashing and propaganda and conditioning, so that why? Anytime someone brings it up, you have to acquiesce. And you have to say, okay, sorry, I don't want to be Hitler. I don't want to be a Nazi. I don't want to be a bad person. And I don't want people to die. So if I don't want people to die and I don't want, a genocide, then I have to agree with you. Like, and that's the tool that it's being used. Speaking of old Republic Romans, I mean, I don't know. Just, of course, it is what it is. I like equate the two, although it's an empire. But it had elements of republicanism.
Father to the Gulag, you might try asking why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may well be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old, so perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
See, that's the reality of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very fucking cool? The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years?
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching.
You might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family members
were murdered. Yeah, we got all that. Me mum. Like I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mum got killed by Hitler.
Because he doesn't find it funny when you say Hitler's very fucking cool.
I don't care. I don't care.
I know you don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. And what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay. And that's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah,
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow up? That is just childish.
He murdered 12 million people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits. It's just cool. The uniforms, the parades. It's cool as a guy. You look at World War II. And it's fascinating, and it's interesting, and it's compelling, and it's cool. And we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, "Oh, that's not very funny, mate. Me mum." And it's like, shut up. Like, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
You think if half your family had been wiped out?
Yes, and this is where, for a lot of normal people, like they'll find Nick off-putting because he's not acknowledging that person's hurt and suffering in his family. But at the same time, like Piers is not acknowledging what Nick is saying, right? Where it's not about the fact that we are pro-genocide, or anyone really, except if you're psychotic, but it's about this being a tool and a shield against leftist and even broadly speaking, like Jewish criticism.
By very fucking cool Hitler.
Yeah, he's not really helping himself in this clip, but
you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers? Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool if your family had been through that? Or do you think you would find it very fucking disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is...
Here's the thing. What happened to Jews and what happened to his family was wrong, was bad, it was evil. But we all went through this. Like, there's no really group of people, I mean, there might be some, but, like... that hasn't gone through such horrific atrocities in history. But the only one that we have to constantly acquiesce and grovel for, at least when it comes to this narrative, is the Jews in the Holocaust. Do you know what Koreans went through under Japanese imperialism? Like, what Koreans went through under Japanese imperialism? What Japanese imperialists did during their excursions and their conquests in the early 1900s makes the Nazis look tame. But then no one cares if you make jokes about Imperial Japan. They don't. They literally conducted human experiments. The Japanese, like some of them even engaged in cannibalism. They raped women. They killed millions of civilians. The imperialist Japanese, they made Nazi Germany look tame. Okay, but if you make a joke about imperialist Japan, oh, land of the rising sun, the sun will rise again, all that stuff, no one really cares as much, do they? They don't. But then the moment you make a joke about the Holocaust, they're all up in arms. And again, I don't think laughing at someone's suffering is okay. It's not. But we have to understand the broader picture here and see what's going on and what it's being used for. Yeah, the Nanking Massacre. Think about that. And no one cares. Like, seriously, no one cares in the West when you joke about that. And so even like massacres and genocides that happen in the West, like the Holodomor, if you joke about the Holodomor, do you think anyone will really care? Do you think liberals like Piers Morgan will really care? No. So it's selective outrage for a selective historical event. Why? It's because they can use it. It's used, again, as a weapon. Exactly. Every society, race of people have committed atrocities throughout all of human history, but the certain events that happened not even 100 years ago are seen as the absolute worst thing ever. And that's the thing. It's like, this is the absolute one of the worst things ever. That's what they believe in. It was bad. It was bad. I have to say it all the time. It was bad. I'm not of those people who are like, the Holocaust never happened. It happened. The official amount of people who died, that's, I guess, up for debate. Not that I really care all that much. I do believe it was 6 million. I don't think it's out of the ordinary. But yeah, it's used as a weapon. As a cudgel.
Interview. You try to come across as moderate, but every now and again the mask slips. And it slipped again here with what you say about Hitler.
Oh no, we have a Holocaust. As soon as I say the Holocaust denier, 271K starts following me on Kick. Oh no.
There's something very fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money?
Dude, like, what are the chances of that, okay? What are the chances of that?
Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. This. And I'm sitting here saying, it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that
what
serious.
I'm getting at...
Not that serious.
Do you want to say more about he's a monster?
You're not kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right? You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain. Right? And at some stage, that brain is taking...
Maybe the Groypers found your stream. You know, half the Groypers hate me and half the Groypers love me. Again, with any movement, there's going to be differences of people and opinions. So if you love the Lord and if you're respectful, then I welcome any Groyper. But if you're a genuinely hateful person, then nope.
Is this an interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful 90 seconds from a British journalist who lost a lot of family members to the Nazis.
See, it's like very powerful 90 seconds. It's like, dude, like, yes, his suffering was wrong, but it's like this glazing and this glamorizing almost of the suffering of those who lost family members in the Holocaust. Like, what? I don't know.
In such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives. Okay, the Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been in America.
What about the Schindler's List? Tell me about the Schindler's List. Tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans as well.
Yeah, Schindler's List, to be honest, great movie. Great film, by the way. Liam Neeson was really great in it, but And the theme is really powerful too. I learned it on the cello because I was very moved by the movie, but
Westerners for our entire lives. And you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, but let's just be clear, it doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we've thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why
Sunny Love, thanks for the follow.
we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore. Why we can't be proud of Europeans, why we can't be proud of being Christian. Because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives.
Wait,
no, it's true. And that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Honestly,
yeah, it's a crock. You don't want to hear anymore about me mom and me dad.
Listen. What you just said is a crock of shit, and you
it's
know
true.
it.
It's called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize this stuff. You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something like what you just said.
I'm banned from banking and credit cards. You know what you're talking to? I do it for money. How much money you make? Your company's worth $100 million. Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America. I'm banned from processing credit cards. But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened?
Then don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well.
Dude, here's the thing. This is what liberals always do, right? They complain about slavery in the past without even giving two shites about slavery happening right now in the whole world, right? They care about atrocities and genocides and concentration camps in the past without giving two shites about the ones that exist right now in our world today. So again, it is not caring about human suffering. It's not caring about genocides or evil and objective evil. That's not what they care about. What they care about is promulgating certain narratives to shut you up so that they can virtue signal, and then they can be on a high pedestal of this, this sense of morality. It's like so bloated of this sense of morality for themselves, so that they can look down on you and preach down to you and make you bow down and grovel for whatever they believe. Okay, it is used as a cudgel. It's used as a political tool, a rhetorical tool. It's used as a bludgeon to shut you up, to make you say you need to agree with me or else. And this is enforced not only at a cultural level, but it's enforced at even a legal level, right? By law, in many countries, you're not even allowed to question. So that's why it's just like full of crap. Where, okay, if you cared about like abject evil happening today, then maybe you have credence, but you don't care about the slavery happening right now. You only obsess over the slavery that happened in the past. You don't care about the concentration camps and the genocide and the mass murder of Christians all throughout the world right now, which, by the way, Christians are the most persecuted religious group in the world, bar none. You don't care about that. Well, but it's all about the Jews. It's all about the Holocaust. It's all about this. It's all about the blacks who are enslaved by white people, which only a very small minority in proportion of white people actually own slaves. And by the way, the traders and the owners of the ships of the transatlantic slave trade were also Jewish. Oh no, poor minorities, poor victim groups. And again, what happened to these people is not good. I don't condone it at all. It's all evil. But you can't even advocate for the people who are suffering right now in the world right now. And your obsession and your focus on the past is what makes people say, hey, you're not a serious person. You don't actually care. There are tens of thousands of Nigerian Christians being killed by terrorist groups and Islamic jihadists in Nigeria right now. Nigerian Christians are suffering. They're in danger constantly just for being Christian. And this is all over Africa. It's all over the Middle East too. What's the response? Where's the focus on that? No one cares. No one cares. So
when you say it's
how much money are you?
A grifter, I'd be like you.
How much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now. Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that.
Yeah. See, he said exactly what I said. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys
I'm not done hearing about that.
Okay, well.
By the way, I don't get my opinions from Nick Fuentes. I don't watch his show regularly. I watch it occasionally just to see what he's saying and to see, like, especially clips that are taken out of context to see the full context of it. But it's like I came to these conclusions on my own, and then I realized like Nick was also saying it, and I was like, whoa, like actually I think I agree with this guy more than I disagree with him. I might disagree with him on his methods and his rhetoric, but like what he says objectively isn't so incorrect. And I think a lot of people, like I have so many Bible believing Christians who love the Lord, who I was shocked to see that they're Nick Fuentes fans. I'm like, what? Why? You're a normie evangelical. And because they all are sick of the moral posturing and the hypocrisy and like what's going on in the world. And they're just sick of their society and their country, their home being torn to shreds. So, and I've said this many times, like I don't agree with a lot of Nick's methods. I think he's too quick to burn bridges, and he's a lot of times a little too crass, and he takes it over top with his jokes. But like I take him at his word, and I try to give everyone always the benefit of the doubt until they prove me wrong. What is the age of those evangelicals? They're like around my age. They're like mid-20s, young 20s, late teens. A lot of them in college, or a lot of them college graduates. So yeah.
You know, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got three
We're not
sons.
listening
I've
to
got three
crying
sons.
minorities anymore.
I've got three sons, and they don't share your views about slavery and about the Holocaust. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more. They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration.
Wait, what? Did he just say they sound like girls?
In the last 150 years or more. They can do that, and they can also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust.
Yeah, the younger evangelicals are not Zionists. And I've been pleasantly surprised. A lot of the Christian influencers that I'm friends with, they are very not Zionist, and they are not dispensationalist, and they reject all of that because they read scripture, and they are going back to tradition. And even these evangelicals who, yeah, they aren't Catholic, they aren't Orthodox, but they are going back to a sense of traditionalism because they understand the beauty of sacred tradition, and understanding that those who came before us, the church fathers, the Christians who endured massive persecution and hardship, the ones who built beauty and think beautiful churches and art and architecture and music, like there is so much to glean from them. So I've seen that massive push from young Gen Z evangelicals, which I think is awesome. I think it's awesome.
Slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that. Again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation for saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion, and it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws. And that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called the Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality.
Yeah, is that song, what's that stupid song by John Lennon that says that, like, you know, we'll have no borders, we'll have no countries? I'm blanking on it. You guys know what I'm talking about? It's that song that, like, celebrities sang together. So cringe during COVID. Imagine. Thank you. Yes, Imagine. I just thought of it, and then I just saw the chat. Yeah, isn't that what Imagine really is? That's the quintessential song that encapsulates the post-World War II liberal consensus. It is the liberal order, where they came together and, like, you know what? Screw nations, screw national identity, screw homes, and screw heritage. You're just all one people. And then those people, rootless cosmopolitans, are so easy to control, because if you don't have roots, literally, but also figuratively, spiritually, if you do not have roots, do you think that people are easy to control? Of course! They're so easy to control, because there's nothing that tethers them and anchors them to rightly ordered priorities and loves. That's what it is. It's no conspiracy. It's no conspiracy.
We need to be empathetic and altruistic. We need to be diverse and pluralistic. And that experiment isn't working. And I'll tell you the truth. Right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff at this, our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white. In 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country.
But he has good food.
And these Jewish people,
he has good food, so it's okay.
My grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
Gaza, it's
how
against
many
whites.
Christians are there in the world?
1 point some billion. Yeah, 2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
See, this attitude is why you're losing. When you say
who am I losing to?
White people,
Who am I losing to?
White people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it. Mass migration. You're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state, they can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then
Charlie Kirk was actually called anti-Semitic for that, by the way. On the PBT podcast with Patrick Bet-David, he did say that what Israel's trying to do with Gaza and the Palestinians is ethnic cleansing. And yeah, they came after him for it. They really hated that he said that.
Whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people being born that are white? Where's the arrow pointing? Where are we going to be in 50 years? In 50 years, there might be in Israel. In 50 years, there's going to be a white person.
I think white people right now are like 7 to 8% of the global population. Like, they're a small minority. So it's like, I totally understand where white people are coming from.
You don't believe people should get married, right?
I think people should get married. I'm a Christian.
But you're basically anti-marriage, really. You've talked about this. You've talked about.
Are we done talking about white genocide?
Well, no, I'm coming to the same part because you seem very resistant to the idea of marriage. You've never got married. You've talked very scathingly about henpecked husbands. Just take a look.
That's true. Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like, they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like, you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much, you're a bitch.
So we'll obviously get to the brazen misogyny part of that a little later. But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on of white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly, so they shouldn't presumably procreate. So how does that work? I mean, aren't you, with your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children, therefore you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population? I'm confused.
I tell my followers to get married all the time. I tell them that it's best for everybody to get married. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex. I think that's the only licit way as a Catholic is to have sex is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I don't want to have kids and a wife. You know, my wife would be screaming about that.
Yeah, it's like, the thing is, it's like, how do you expect someone who is one of the most controversial figures in America to get married easily? Like, you don't think that there's gonna be women who want to use him, or there's gonna be women who are, I don't know, sent by organizations, like, not like Project Veritas, but you've seen those videos by Project Veritas where those Democrat congressmen, politicians, or the leaders of pharmaceutical companies go on dates, and it's actually a Project Veritas undercover employee. You don't think it'll be hard for Nick to get married? Like, even for me, as a small niche content creator online, it's hard for me to meet someone and get married because, like, I don't know, like, who, like, I'm not a normal person, the average person who I'm a public figure at this point. So millions upon millions of people have seen my posts and content online. Millions. You don't think that people like us could potentially find a woman and maybe even fall in love, but that woman be an opportunist? Like, that's not me being paranoid. Like, that's literally the case. And so it's hard. Now, that's not excusing Nick for not being married. Of course, he should get married and have children. But since 18, he's been literally one of the most controversial figures in American politics. It's hard to get married that way. And even for me, like, I've gone on dates with girls, and then once they learn what I do, some of them love it, right? So some of them love what I do. But then there's a part of me that kind of like turns me off because it's like, why do you love me for me, or do you love me because of what I do? And I think there's a part in that where you can't separate the two completely, of course, but there's also girls who I went on dates with and they knew what I did, and then they're like, yeah, I don't want to be part of a family that's public facing. And you know, that's fine. It is what it is. If you don't want that for your life, that you're totally justified. But like, being a public figure, and especially a controversial one, it's tough to find a wife. It's tough to find a wife. Exactly. Like, Charlie got married and his kids had kids and was assassinated. So, like, do you think it's easy for people who are controversial like us to easily just find a wife and get married? Do you think it's easy? Yes, of course. I have tons of girls in my DMs. I do. Like, I'm not bragging about that, but I have a lot of girls in my DMs. How can I trust them? How? Right? I'm sure I am actually baffled at the amount of girls that I know, my friends who are girls, who actually love Nick, and they're like, you know, if you know Nick, like, can you tell him that I'm single and I want to get married, and I'll be his wife who makes him food and cookies and stays in the kitchen, and like, it's actually like staggering. But it's like, how can you trust people if you're a public figure? And it's hard. So I actually sympathize a lot with Nick on this.
Me, you know, I have to be able to take risks and be able to say these things. It's difficult to bring a family into a life that's like that. But for my followers, I tell them to get married. But what's happening with women?
You literally just told your followers, hang on, in that clip, you literally told followers, women, they get old, they get fat, they get ugly, they get very annoying. So where's the incentive to get married to women?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. Like, increasingly, women are getting heavier and more feminist and more bratty. And, you know, a lot of the lovely feminine women that I know in my own life, they're really distraught by that too. They're so frustrated. They're like, feminism has ruined it for all of us. And what is this body positivity thing? This is so stupid. Like, I don't want to be fat. I don't think being fat is good. So there's a lot of women who think this too.
Isn't what? You're actively telling them
you're extrapolating a lot.
Just pointing you back yourself again.
No, but you're extrapolating and saying, well, you say women are annoying, so therefore, what's the incentive? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it in spite of the fact that they talk too much. We can get them to lose weight. We can put them on peptides. We can get them to the promised land. But it's going to be.
Do you think this view of women may be why none of them want to go near you?
Oh, you should see my DMs. It is quite the opposite. They're called.
Exactly. I called it. I said it, dude. There are so many girls who love Nick Fuentes. There's like a growing movement of groy bets, which is so interesting to see. because you would think that he's very off-putting to women. He is. He's off-putting to the majority of women, but there's a lot of women who are like, I love Nick Fuentes, and I'm like, yeah, more power to you, I guess.
Great bets, and I'm actually batting them away. Granted, not all of them are attractive. Some of them are attractive.
Are you actually, just to clear up one of the many theories about you, I have no idea what the answer is, and you haven't got to answer, but are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No, but I will say that women are very difficult to be around. Okay. So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
I do not. No, absolutely not.
Should you stay at home?
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy. Yeah. I mean, I know.
See, that's the thing. It's like, oh, am I a misogynist for believing what women believe? The majority, 96% of American women believed 100 years ago. Only 4% of women 100 years ago during the suffrage movement wanted the right to vote. We're 96% of women at the time, were they misogynist? Did they just hate themselves so much? Or is there something there where they understood that politics is not for the realm, it's the realm of men because it's messy, it's ugly, it's dirty, you gotta get your hands, like really, you gotta get nitty gritty. And women understand that the fundamental political unit of society is the family, and once you start separating the vote and making women more like men, that households will fall apart and women will try to usurp her husbands. Wives will try to usurp her husbands and reject male headship, and society will crumble. Women will get more depressed and get on SSRIs and be sexually promiscuous. All anti-suffragettes, by the way, were very literate. They're very educated. They're very smart, but they hated this idea of women's equality with men. Why? Did they hate themselves? Were they brainwashed by the mean old man? No. And it's just so tiring. Oh, you just hate women, don't you? No, it's so dumb. Like, it just Piers Morgan. Like, you can't have a serious conversation about this, man. It's so ridiculous. Like, yeah, like, I think the 19th Amendment should be repealed because, is it because I hate women? No, I don't hate women. I want to protect them. But objectively speaking, what has the right to vote for a woman? What has that improved in society? Oh, like, women were all being beat to death and tortured and abused by their husbands and they didn't have a voice. Really? You really believe that? It is such cope. You think women were being so abused that 96% of women didn't want the right to vote? That they loved and enjoyed their husband's protection and provision? It's like so deeply unserious. So deeply unserious.
I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women are annoying. All women grow old.
He's not a boomer. You're the boomer. The boomers are the ones who sold out this country. Boomers are the ones who sold out this country for money, for their own wealth, not the ones giving their inheritance to their children, the ones who are all about the anti-racism and all that garbage, the ones who are super pro-women's rights and all that garbage. Come on, give me a break.
They all get fat. Says the guy, have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow, says the guy who's never got laid.
Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? You know, people say it's a bad thing. Like, no, like, chastity is good. Saving yourself for your spouse is good. I know there's a lot of people online who say men need to get laid. If you're a virgin, you're a loser. Like, I'm not proud of my promiscuous past. I'm not. And I've been open about it, that I've committed a lot of grave sins and I made a lot of mistakes. If I could go back in time, I wish I didn't make any of those mistakes I did. Because I am now accountable to my wife, my future wife, and what am I gonna tell her? So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. This is not something we should want in society, for people to sleep around with people they're not gonna get married to. What is wrong with saving yourself for your wife? And of course, there's like a part that's like, oh, like, yes, if you hate women and you're an incel, like, okay, I get it. That's not good either. But we should want men and women to save themselves for their spouse. Why? Because sex is an intimate act. Spring Rolls, thanks for the follow. Sex is an intimate act for husband and wife within the covenant of marriage. Oh, you're just a loser who never got laid. Ho, ho, ho. Come on, Piers.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's
always
get laid, free love.
Given you've never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This,
yeah, free love, right? The hippies, everyone sleep around, sexual revolution. That's the boomers, right? That's the boomers. Sexual liberation, sexual revolution, sleep around with whoever you want. You are just a hunk of flesh, nihilistic garbage, right? Oh, whatever. Just do whatever you want. Do what your carnal desires tell you to do. You don't have a soul. You don't have a spirit. These things don't mean anything. It's fine. And it's the same reason why Piers Morgan also believes that his country being dispossessed and conquered and invaded doesn't matter. Because why? Oh, we got good food now. It's all about his base carnal desires. Literal, like what makes you any different than an animal? If you're all about free love, sex wherever, whenever, sleep with whoever you want. Oh, I don't care that I'm being invaded by foreigners who are coming in and pillaging our country and raping our daughters and hurting our country, stealing our birthright. I don't care why, because, oh, I have some food. I have good food now. I have a good tikka masala. Yeah, I love that. I love halal. That's the crux of it, isn't it? And that's the crux of it. Liberalism is just hedonism. Liberalism is just hedonism. For them to do whatever the heck that they want, whatever their flesh wants to do. And scripture tells us to abandon, to conquer, crucify your flesh, and to follow in Christ, to partake in his sufferings, to deny yourself, and pick up your cross to follow him. So this is the crux of it. Why do you have such a problem with it? You're such a loser. You haven't gotten laid. What? It's deeply unserious. Deeply unserious.
Talking about empathy and your kids are empathetic and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem. So yeah, we are
another clip of yours about women.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
You think women want to be raped, do you?
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these statistics
that's what
say.
You believe,
they have fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped. But there's a study out there. Get ready for this. It says 62% of women have rape fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watched what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about?
Do you guys remember that? I remember 50 Shades of Grey. When that came out when I was in high school, I was like, there's no way that women enjoy this. So do you think men were the #1 readers and consumers of 50 Shades of Grey, a BDSM fantasy? Who's the one reading a book about Minotaur having sex with a woman? Who are the ones having erotica fantasies that are BDSM and all this stuff, okay? It is woman. And if this stat is true, by the way, 62% of women have that fantasy. Now, that doesn't excuse any rape, okay? That's awful and evil. Horrendous. I think any sort of rape is awful. Rapists should be castrated or put to death, okay? That's what I believe about rape. But women have this fantasy because why? Their brains are so porn rotted. It is. And we always talk about men and their faults for consuming porn. This smut, this kind of erotica is completely warping the minds of women. And they want this. 62% of them have this kind of fantasy. Now, the optics on that clip from Nick is awful. It is. But the reality is 62% of women, if that statistic is true, I mean, that's an insane number. That's an insane number of women who have that. And again, this is an extension of the sexual revolution, right? Where degeneracy begets degeneracy. Okay? It does. Sin begets sin. Brokenness begets brokenness. That just expands. And so that joke, yes, while in poor taste and it's terrible optics, it's like, dude, it's just like, oh, you want women to get raped? No, it's just women have these fantasies. Like, did you guys watch Shoe on Head's video about this? Like, read the comments, read the posts from girls online. I watched Zootopia 2 yesterday. Great movie, by the way. Obviously, it has very liberal prejudice undertones, but great movie. I do recommend that people watch it. I did enjoy it. You know that horse? The horse in Zootopia 2? You know the horse? He was an actor in that movie. He was like a Hollywood star in the first Zootopia. In the second Zootopia, he's the mayor. Woman had fantasies about this horse, okay? And when I learned about that, I was so disturbed. Dude, the kind of fantasies that women have online with these fictional animal characters, bro, okay? Women are degenerate today, and they're so much worse than men. Now, I'm not saying that men are bad. Men are bad too today. But oh my goodness, the amount of fantasies they have with animals. Again, that Minotaur book, which is the #1 best-selling book right now for women and feminists. Dude, there's a lot of Christian women who are insulated from this, which is fine. That's good. You should be. But there are, I'm telling you, millions of women who love this stuff, okay? Who wrote Twilight? Who wrote 50 Shades of Grey? Who wrote all of these erotica novels, these fantasies of women being, choked and all that stuff? Like, it's awful. It's terrible. Who's writing it? Who's consuming it? Who's reading it? It's woman. It's woman. So it is awful. And oh my gosh, don't even get me started with the Beauty and the Beast. The amount of women who are, I'm not even gonna get into it. You guys can probably understand the implications, okay? Gosh, dude. Gosh. Woman, literally, like it's just woman, okay? That's the statement. Woman. Why are women like this?
I mean, that's just.
But we're problematic for joking about it.
It's true.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship? I mean, people say the reason
you don't have to have sex with a woman to understand women, okay?
you're so angry about women is you're basically
you only have to have sex with your wife to understand your wife, okay? That's all you need to have sex with, okay? Your wife.
an incel.
I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very angry about women.
I'm passionate. It's an issue I'm passionate about.
You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when you don't have relationships, you don't have sex, when are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
Was that? I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them, and that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll. They're chilling out. They're getting a little. Look, they're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average weight is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is,
I think the average weight of the American woman is like 170, 180 or something.
Is playing the field these days.
Yeah, Zootopia's out. A lot of people in America haven't gone to watch it, but internationally it's done really well. I recommend it. It was a good movie. It was a fun movie. I found myself laughing a lot and almost teared up. It was pretty good.
We'll tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads, like Bradley Martin, Clavicular. They agree with me. You know, there's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing, you're a misogynistic pig. Because I don't know what that is. I guess
let me explain to you what I think it is. I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid, never had a meaningful relationship with a woman, says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote, they should stay at home, that all they do is fantasize about being raped and being beaten up, that's what they want.
I've dated quite a bit. I believe women shouldn't have the right to vote. And there's a lot of women who also agree with that they shouldn't have the right to vote.
They're annoying, that they get fat, that they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredibly tiny, but actually, you are the embodiment.
Just so patronizing. So patronizing.
And if I was, in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yeah, here you are, 27 years old, and most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had, never associate with women, and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position.
Because they observe.
You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't, or whatever.
Because they observe the behavior of modern women. Okay, now modern men are also at fault, but when you observe the behavior of modern women today, do you think that good, virtuous men would be like, wow, I'm really, really vying to get married with one of these whores? No! The majority of girls are walking around literally with little to no clothing, especially in the summertime, okay? Like the amount... This is why I was so grateful for my church, because my church is very big on modesty. And then the girls in my church are being, raised pretty properly. But for the most part, at least from our leaders in the church, but they literally get appalled when they see other girls. They're like, why are they wearing that? How could they wear that? It's like, yes, this is how we all think, dude. Like, modern women are cooked. They're cooked. Now, a modern man, there's not a lot of great men out there either. I'm not saying there's an abundance of great men. But from a man's perspective, he's like, okay, I want to get married. I want to have children. I want to start a family. And you see the state of most modern women, you're like, oh, freak, we're cooked. We're cooked.
For a reason. And it's made you bitter about women. And I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
No, see, here's the thing. First of all, you're very caught up in the labels. It's always, you're a racist, you're a misogynist.
You said you were a racist.
To me. Oh, can I respond?
You gave yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't give you the label. Okay. You said, Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down.
Did you or didn't you?
It's okay.
Did you?
Yeah.
Calm down. It's okay.
You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying to infer something that didn't happen. You said, I gave you the label of being a racist. No, you did. You said, I'm a racist.
I think this is why Nick wins a lot. You guys remember that Dean Withers clip? Oh, like, if you ever put yourself in gay people's shoes, and he's just like, you put yourself in gay people's shoes, and he like keeps calm in a lot of these interviews and these debates, which is why I think a lot of people find that he wins these debates and these conversations, because he stays calm. He stays calm.
Give yourself a label.
You're gonna have to tone it down a little, all right? You're gonna have to bring it down a notch and relax. This is just an interview, okay? Please calm down. All I said is you're hung up. I didn't say you gave me that. Maybe I did. But here's what I mean. What I mean is you're just hung up on saying, I'm proving you're a misogynist. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, you deny the Holocaust. And I'm I'm not about the labels,
You didn't
man.
deny
I'm
the
just
Holocaust.
past that.
As I said to you, look, Nick, as I said to you, I just wanted to go over the stuff that you know everyone uses out there
Yeah.
about you and get you to respond. And we are getting, I think, a long way in this interview. Right?
Okay.
You didn't deny the Holocaust. You accepted there's been a Holocaust of at least 6 million Jews.
I'm a maximalist. I'm a Holocaust.
That is significant. You
I think
did
it's
admit
more.
you did admit you're a racist, and you have spelled out a thought process about women, which is the purest definition of misogyny that I've ever seen. And you said you're not gay. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well, look, and I own the labels, okay? But I just don't care that much about them.
That's fine.
I feel like the whole,
I'm not saying
this
you
is
have-
like a weird...
I'm not saying you
Yeah,
have to
go
care, Nick. You don't have to care about any of it. I promise you. Right? That's not why I got you on the show. I wanted to give you a fair crack, which I think I had. We've gone over a lot of stuff. We've got a bit more to go on. I genuinely don't think I've ambushed you with anything you couldn't have been expecting.
No.
I don't think I've been overtly hostile. In fact, when you've asked me to calm down, I've calmed down. I don't want to have a hostile, angry, shouty match with you. I simply want you to spell out exactly what you've meant about all these things, and people can then be the
Nick Fuentes got cooked by Mr. Meadowker. I gotta watch that.
judge of them. So let's take another break, and we'll come back and talk about Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, expressvpn.com/Piers. Okay,
We're almost done with the interview
you
chat.
began your show in 2017, the same year as Trump was inaugurated for his first term in office. You supported him at that time, but you've grown increasingly disillusioned, I think it'd be fair to say. Let's play a recent clip from you about Trump.
We played this game in the first term. We're 10 years in. And you still have these people, I hate to say it, but they're just like in denial. And they're like, okay, everybody, let's all go on Twitter and let's tell Trump, don't screw over your voters. Okay, hey, Trump, don't hire John Radcliffe in the CIA. Like, what are we doing? We lost. It's over. The time to make demands was during the election when he needed the votes. He's a lame duck president. He doesn't need anything from us. He's not even on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. So what are you talking about? We're going to all rally and tell him, don't hire yet another neocon?
Now, over the weekend, you posted this on X. You said performative cruelty is the perfect phrase to characterize the Trump admin and the mood of the MAGA movement. In order to compensate for his compromises and failures, Trump has to fall back on mean-spiritedness to appeal to the basest instincts of its followers. It's really sad. I mean,
Video is called Mr. Meadowker and Nick Fuentes just don't watch it on stream. Okay, I'll check it out later. I guess it's kind of crazy, huh?
think you're the best person, Nick Fuentes, to lecture people about performative cruelty.
Why? Are you accusing me of being cruel? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
How am I cruel?
You're cruel about black people. You're cruel about women. I mean, you're cruel about a lot of people, and you're very performative.
Okay. I don't think I'm performative. If anything, everyone else is performative. I'm authentic. You know, whatever you want to say about me, it's real. It's from the gut. But yes, I do think it's performative. And what I mean by that is, you know, when they're doing the deportations, they know the deportations are not where the base wants them to be. They deported, the figures are disputed, but from my data, it's 300,000 in the year, which is not a massive deportation. They know the base is unhappy with that. So what do? The deportations that they are carrying out, they do a big spectacle and they arrest everybody and they film it and they put a hype at it and there's a meanness in there. They play that.
The Sabrina Carpenter meme. The Sabrina Carpenter music with the ICE agents. I thought it was pretty funny.
Song. I think from Sabrina Carpenter or something. And they make it a joke. They make it glib. And they do that because they're not delivering on the promise. So they compensate by doing it meaner, edgier, more mean-spirited, so that the base will overlook the fact that it's not happening. And I think that's by definition performative cruelty. You can call me a hypocrite, but it's definitely true about what they're doing in the administration.
You went to see Trump at Mar-a-Lago with Ye for dinner. What was that like?
It was very interesting. They're my two heroes. Ye is my hero. Trump is my hero. Even though he's very disappointing, I still have a personal hero of mine. And he's a remarkable person. It was a great conversation. We got along pretty well. He liked me. I liked him. It was a love fest.
I mean, he got tagged afterwards for supping with the white supremacist.
That's going to get
devil.
clipped.
I mean, do you accept you are a white supremacist?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think white people are superior to black people?
No, I'm a Christian, so I believe everybody is equal before God.
This is the thing. It's like he said this how many times, and they still keep saying, "Are you a white supremacist? You're a white supremacist. You're a white supremacist."
Including women?
Yes.
So you give women equal rights? Then?
No.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I disagree with him on that specific one about performative cruelty. I don't think that the social media people are in conjunction with, and like they are to a certain extent because they need approval and things like that. But I don't know how much social media interns who are responsible for making fun edits online, how much they are working in direct coordination with people like Stephen Miller, right? I just don't think it's happening. There's a huge long chain of command that happens in agencies in the government. So of course there is coordination, there is collaboration, but the amount of distance between those who are posting those hype edits versus Kristi Noem, right? With Kristi Noem or Stephen Miller or Tom Homan or things like that, it's very far. So I don't think it's like, oh, we're not doing as much immigration as we need. Hey, social media, can we get some fun edits to distract the base? I don't think that's happening. But at the same time, there is a part of it where it's funny to the base, but to the average person, it's not palatable. Like these videos of ICE agents raiding and going in and arresting people, it's not palatable, right, to the average person. And while a lot of people might want and like the idea of mass deportations, when they see it in action, they don't really like it. They can't digest it well, and it's off-putting. So in that case, yes, it is a bit of performative cruelty where you can just do the job. You don't need to make social media hype edits about it. Now, do I think it's fine? I personally think it's fine because we are deporting criminals who came here illegally and don't belong here. So it's fine. Especially if it's to send a message to people, hey, don't come in here or else we will deport you. But at the same time, is it cruel and unpalatable and not good for optics? Yeah, of course. The average person is not liking it, right?
Right.
So I'm more of the inclination, like, just do the job. Just do the job. Get more people out of here versus making the edits about it. But at the same time, I don't think, again, Christy Nome is going like, hey, we're not doing well. Can social media intern, can you like make some like hype edits to distract the people? I don't think that's happening.
Okay, so we just talked a little bullshit, didn't we?
No, why are you like mad about this? No,
you want women to be treated equally before God, but you don't want to give them equal rights.
Yeah, because women and men are different. Do you believe there are two genders?
It's your view.
Do you think there's two genders?
I do think there are two genders, yes.
Okay, and so you mean there's distinction? There are two distinct genders.
I think we should all have the same rights to...
Well, if they're meaningfully distinct, biologically distinct, and they have different social and biological roles, I think it would follow that we would treat them a little bit differently in the law.
Yes, 100%. Yes, and we do treat them differently. There are different laws that apply to women than to men. We do. So then, it's like to say that they should have equal rights and everything should be the same. That's feminism, and I reject that wholeheartedly because men and women are fundamentally different. We are different by design.
I think Church's teachings reflect that?
I do. Yeah, there's no female priests. Have you ever seen that?
Do you think that the Catholic Church thinks all women should be deprived of vote?
Yeah, I think so.
No, they don't.
I think they do, yeah.
You think the Catholic Church position is women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
I think so, yeah,
no,
but I'm not positive.
No, it's bullshit.
Oh, it should be.
It should be. So if you were Pope, that's what you do. You could be Pope because you're celibate.
That's true. And I'm also
That's funny from Piers. Yes, men and women are equal in value, but not equal in biology and roles. Yes, of course. And the Bible is very clear about this too. So, Piers, you're rejecting scripture and you call yourself Catholic.
Chicago, like the Pope. But look, I mean, women, it says in the Bible that women have no authority over men, and they can't teach men, and that's why there's no female priests.
So there's a lot of things in the Bible. I mean, do you take every word of the Bible as sacrosanct?
Well, yeah, it's inspired scripture.
So all of it is
now
all of it is
a theological debate. Well, it is Catholic doctrine that women should not lead and teach. I mean, you're not interacting with what I'm saying. Why can't women be priests?
They should be.
There it is. There it is, guys. Women should be priests. Piers, you're not Catholic. You don't even submit to Catholic doctrine. Basic Catholic doctrine when it comes to men and women. I bet this guy is pro birth control too. Birth control is not in alignment. IVF, birth control, contraception is all against Catholic doctrine as it stands right now. What makes you Catholic if you're not even going to follow Catholic doctrine? It's like me calling myself a vegan and eating meat. Like, what's the point of calling yourself Catholic if you're not going to observe Catholicism?
Okay, well, you're not Catholic. That's not a Catholic position.
Catholic. Many things I disagree with the Catholic Church.
Okay. Well, that kind of is contrary because the whole basis of being Catholic is accepting.
You can be a member of a religion and disagree with parts of that religion. Perfectly reasonable.
You could be, well, yeah, I mean, you could say that, but it wouldn't be true.
You're extremist, you can't. Obviously, you never deviate.
That's just not rigorous.
You never deviate,
you're
an extremist. But even the Constitution's been amended, was it 27 times? We were talking about this.
The Constitution is not the church. And again, this is how liberals see, and a lot of normie-cons see the Constitution. They see it as a religious text. They see it as divinely inspired scripture, as a divinely inspired text that can do no wrong, that can be no wrong, have no wrong. And therefore, if you have any qualms about the Constitution or the constitutional system as it applies to today, then they call you, right? They call you all these slurs. So it's like, what? Like, what does the Constitution have to do with the Catholic Church? I mean, America is a Protestant nation, by the way, not Catholic.
It's like been amended 27 times. Yeah.
Oh my, this is not rigorous intellectually. This is very
just a statement of fact.
Theology. Okay, but it's fine. Where were we? We're talking about Trump. You're white knighting for women's rights.
White knighting for women's rights.
That's fine.
Put on the pink hat, bro. Put on the pink hat. We're waiting.
What's the pink hat for?
For the march, for the women's march. Are we going to see you at the women's march, protesting for women's rights and all that?
I think women should have equal rights to men. Period.
You carry tampons in case your female friends get a period or something. Like, it's crazy.
I don't have no problem giving a female friend a tampon. Would you? I don't suppose you've ever seen a tampon, have you?
Gross. Absolutely not.
Why would you want to see a tampon, Piers? That's a terrible comeback. That's an awful comeback.
You think tampons are gross?
Yeah, they're filled with period blood. Yeah, it's kind of gross. Wow. Are you into that? You like that? I don't
think you've ever seen it, have you?
I've seen them. I've seen them before.
You've been that close to a woman? Really?
No, I've seen them. Look, I used to live with women, so I've seen them around the house.
I bet you've seen videos, haven't you?
What? What are we doing here, Piers?
I'm not sure.
You really hate that.
I'm not sure.
You're more impressed that I'm a misogynist than you are about anything. It's
wait, what did they just say?
You think tampons are gross?
Yeah, they're filled with period blood. Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Wow.
Are you into that? You like that? You have a lot of tampons?
I don't think you've ever seen it, have you?
I've seen them. I've seen them before.
You've been that close to a woman? Really?
No, I've seen them. Look, I used to live with women, so I've seen them around the house.
Okay, so he's talking about tampons. I was like, what are they talking about?
What? What are we doing here, Piers?
I'm not sure.
You really hate that.
I'm not sure.
You're more impressed that I'm a misogynist than you are about anything. It's
not
very
really.
revealing.
I'm actually more exercised about your blatant self-admitted racism than I'm about anything. But the misogyny runs a close second. Let me ask you about Tucker Carlson, because you had a long sit down with Tucker Carlson, in which he was, oddly, I like Tucker, we got on well, I was with him last week in London. But he gave me...
Here's the thing about Piers. He's like, he cannot understand anyone from their viewpoint. So he always talks about empathy, empathy, empathy. You literally cannot even take a second to try to empathize with someone like Nick on what he believes. Like, why can't you? Like, why don't you? Aren't you supposed to be an empathetic, compassionate person? But he doesn't. And he's completely strawmanning everything and just throwing out epithets and slurs. And it's like, oh my gosh, dude.
He had a harder time than he gives you. And then afterwards, he was more critical. And then you said this about Tucker.
He's a handler. He handles people. That's what he does. He's a fucking liar and a handler. He goes around telling people, I don't know anything. I don't know. Oh, I know nothing. I don't even have a phone. I am just a clueless tourist. I just travel to all these countries. And, you know, I don't trust him. And I don't care, you know, maybe that alienates me from people in the conservative movement. I don't care. I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to be a party to whatever that is. Whatever that CIA bullshit is, I'm not going to be a part of it. So, you know, now that I've heard enough from Tucker and I've heard enough from other people and I've seen enough, this guy's not who he says he is. Not an ally. Stay the fuck away from me. You're weird, dude. You're weird.
See, what would have been great?
I like Tucker. I don't know. I like Tucker.
Right, is if you said that to him when you were sitting opposite him.
Well, when I was sitting opposite him at the dinner and in the interview, he was nothing but nice. He was very nice to me and very cordial, and he didn't call me an anti-Semite, and he didn't even press me on it at all. And I thought he would, and I almost wanted him to. He was nothing but nice, and we had a great time. We had a really great dinner, really great interview, and I felt really good about it. And the next week on my show, I said, he really surprised me. He's great. And then every interview he's done since, all he does is call me an anti-Semite. He goes, well, I hate his anti-Semitism, and, you know, I wonder why people like him. And so I just think that's two-faced. So after that experience, it kind of turned me off. I didn't like that, but he's going to do what he's going to do. He's still a nice guy, but I think he's two-faced.
What about Candace Owens? You had a sit down with her. She called you out on a few.
I wish Nick wouldn't burn bridges so quickly, but it is what it is.
With your more incendiary comments, you've been attacking her quite virulently recently. What's going on there?
Well, you know, it's me and her. We're so complicated. We're on and off. Very passionate on both sides. You know, I think there's this intense desire to be friends, but a frustration. We disagree with each other.
Why did I have to put it like that? It's so dumb. We're on and off, and it's like talking about like toxic lovers. They're like toxic lovers.
Rivalry. But I thought we were going to have a friendly conversation, and then she kind of did the same thing. We're going to go on a show during the war with Iran. We're literally in the middle of a war, and she texted me the day before the United States bombed.
Lyrith, Kang, my wife is telling me she's a huge fan of yours. All I can do is apologize for discovering you so late. Oh, no, don't worry about it. Tell your wife that she is lovely. God bless her, and God bless you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, you don't know. Nick really did make it sound like they're in a romantic relationship.
No. And she said, would you like to come on my show? I said, absolutely. I said, is this going to be about Iran? She goes, I don't do setups. I said, yeah, let's do it. I come on the show, and then she's like got this weird hostile demeanor. She's doing the clip thing. Then she puts it behind a paywall. It was ridiculous. So that really was not nice. And then I think this whole Charlie Kirk thing, I think she's gone insane. I think she's absolutely lost her mind.
Yeah.
So I feel sorry for her husband.
I agree.
What did you feel when Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Where were you when you heard about it?
I was at my house, and a friend of mine who was actually at...
I said this on last stream, right, guys? But my final straw for Candace was I was listening to everything. Again, I always try to steel man and listen to everyone, listen to the totality of the facts and everything going on. I realize as one person, I don't know everything. There's always more to learn. There's always going to be something that someone knows that I don't know. But she pulled up an old private text message with Charlie talking to her about an ex-lover that he had that wasn't Erica. And she was like, this was my favorite my favorite text from Charlie. And he was just so like in love. I'm like, dude, you don't humiliate a dead man like that. And that woman was not the woman that he chose to marry. Like, what is the purpose of doing that? And at that point, it's like, okay, like clearly you're just acting like a toxic ex who couldn't get with the dude. And so you're trying to do whatever you can to milk his whatever relationship that you had with him for your own clout. I just think is so toxic. And that was like, okay, at this point, I don't think you're actually doing it to find the truth. I think you're doing it so that you can, like, I don't know what it is really that you're trying to do, but that was just a low blow. That was very not classy, very dishonorable. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think Candace has kind of lost it. I feel sorry for her husband. Yeah, it's like, dude, imagine being George Farmer. First of all, Candace Owens didn't even take his last name, but Candace Owens is literally just going off and obsessing about another man for 3 months. At a certain point, it's like, okay, you can chalk it up to he was your friend, he was your friend, he was your friend, you care about your friend, fine. If I'm your husband, I would tell you to stop. Just stop. Relax. And then the one time she references her husband is because, oh, her husband doesn't want him to go in live to Turning Point headquarters to talk about everything and address the Turning Point leadership. Yeah. So, I don't know.
The event texted me and said, Charlie got shot. I said, who? He said, Charlie Kirk. I said, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And honestly, it was devastating. I didn't like Charlie Kirk at all. And we had an intense rivalry and he hated me.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Charlie. I think Charlie was great. I spent I spent time with him in Korea. He was only in Korea for 2 days, or actually 1 day, I think, only 2 days. I spent a little time with him backstage at the event we were both at, Build Up Korea. We spoke together, and Charlie was great. He was really cordial, very friendly. He's actually very introverted. You can tell he's very introverted. He was like, when he's dealing with people, he's very soft-spoken, and he always looks tired. It's kind of like Matt Walsh. It's like they're firebrands in public, but then when you interact with them in person, like they're very introverted. But yeah, Charlie's a great guy. Charlie's a great guy. I do believe he's in heaven with the Lord. He was a man of God, really lived out his values well. I really like Charlie, so.
Me. But honest to God, I was devastated. I was emotionally affected by it. I didn't even do a show that night because I was beside myself. So it was rough. I mean, it was hard.
Yeah, when I first heard the news, I was still in Korea, and I was rattled. Like so many people texted me, and it was in the morning in Korea, and I woke up, really early in the morning to pee, and then I saw my text, and I was like, "There's no way." They're like, Charlie was shot. Did you see Charlie shot? And I pull up my phone. I was like, "There's no way." I was literally with him a few days before, talking to him, and then yeah, he was shot. And it was devastating. My heart sank. I was depressed and angry the whole day, and I was really rattled. The fact that this kind of evil could happen on U.S. soil, it really was devastating.
Watch.
When you say you were beside yourself, I mean, you hated him.
I don't hate anybody. I didn't hate him, but I really didn't like him. I intensely disliked him.
He called you vermin, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he hated me also.
But you were still beside yourself when you heard what happened to him.
I was. I thought it was disgusting what was done to him, and it was tragic, and it was horrifying.
Do you fear an attack like that on yourself if you up your own security because of this? Because your profile's got exponentially higher since what happened to Charlie Kirk. I
have increased my security, and but something similar like that happened to me. Someone came to my house with a gun about a year ago, almost exactly, trying to kill me, and he was shot and killed in my alleyway. So I've had increased security for a while. It's a bad time out there, and I do believe it was a left-wing person that killed him. I think it was a left-wing person that tried to kill me. So yeah, I take it very seriously.
Elon Musk said on his X platform that you're a Fed, that you're a paid-up hire of the government. Is that true?
No.
100. You've never worked for the government in any capacity.
I've never talked to federal law enforcement. And actually, I've testified to that fact under oath when I was subpoenaed by the Congress. People leave that part out. But I got subpoenaed, I think, in January 2022, I think it was. And I was deposed by the subcommittee, the House Select Subcommittee on January 6th. And they asked me, did you speak with any federal law enforcement?
I didn't know that. I didn't know Nick was subpoenaed, and under oath, he said that he didn't talk to anyone in the federal government. So I don't know.
And under oath, I said no.
Yeah, someone tried to kill Tim Pool too. Yeah, it's just left-wing violence is increasing, and they're getting more brazen about it. So we gotta keep praying, guys. We gotta really mobilize to save this country, because things are getting bad, and things I think will definitely get worse before it gets better. I think the death of Charlie Kirk, I thought for a moment that people would take a step back and have some perspective and say, hey, okay, things are getting out of hand. Things are getting out of control. We need to cool down the temperature. Nope, it's gotten worse. The left has gotten more brazen. The left has gotten more, out there with their violence, and we gotta be vigilant, guys. We gotta be vigilant.
Never had contact with them. I've never turned over devices. So no, absolutely not.
There's been footage that's come out again this week. This is you at the January the 6th riots. Let's take a look.
Here it is. We are taking the Capitol. Be marching and don't relax. Never relax. Break down the barriers and disregard the police. This Capitol belongs to us.
Yeah, I remember seeing these clips, and this is what made me really skeptical of Nick in the first place.
The police are evacuating the Capitol.
Okay, by the way, just a side note, look at that X handle, Genghis MF Khan, right? So again, Genghis Khan was one of the biggest mass murderers in history, and someone can have a handle saying Genghis Khan and no one cares. But if you have Hitler in your name, oh, you're like the worst person in the world. Again, it's about the incongruency and the asymmetry when it comes to selective outrage in history and about historical figures.
Now, you're heard there shouting down your loud hailer, break down the barriers and disregard the police. The capital belongs to us now. What did you mean by that?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The capital belongs to the people.
Disregard the police. So you don't support law and order?
No, I support law and order. But on that day, the police were brutal. The police killed somebody, Ashley Babbitt. And, they were throwing people off of the rafters. They killed multiple people. So
disregarding the police is the first step to anarchy, isn't it?
Well, I think the first step to anarchy is when the government rigs the election, which is what happened. That is when the government loses its legitimacy, and its enforcers, consequently, do also.
I still don't know how I feel about that. Chat, what do you feel about that? How do you feel about it? That 2020 was rigged? I do think there was a lot of voter impropriety, but I don't know if it was enough to overturn the election. I remember that was a really heated time during that time, because it was during COVID, it was after BLM, the Summer of Love. So I remember it was a really heated time in American politics.
There's no evidence.
There will always be election fraud no matter what. Exactly. There always is voter impropriety and election fraud. It's just, I don't know if, I personally just haven't seen enough evidence to suggest that in 2020 it was enough. Because the thing is, BLM and COVID literally had people by the neck. Like, it literally completely brainwashed, especially BLM, completely brainwashed so many people. And those people today have become a little more right-wing now because they saw the lies. But I remember distinctly, I was betrayed by a lot of my closest friends because I didn't support BLM. And they said that I was a fake Christian. They slandered me. They smeared me. They said that I hate black people and I want them all dead. And it was a rough time. And there were so many people completely captured by that. Every institution, every corporations, academic institutions, schools, even the government, the embassy flew, U.S. embassies all around the world flew the BLM flag. Okay, that's how insane it got in 2020. I think that affected 100% voter behavior, that people are going to vote for Democrats after that, right? So
the government rigged the election. You know that. You're a bright guy.
Well, let's talk about it. You want to talk about the election of 2020?
Yeah, I think Trump lost it fair and square. I think he fought the wrong argument about the stolen election. I've said to him, to his face,
I agree.
The argument he should have said is that the deliberate suppression of things like the Hunter Biden laptop scandal from the media, by social media, by big tech, was actually a deliberate attempt to subvert the result of the election. And that's a much better argument because it's undeniable. When the New York Post that had that exclusive were basically shadow banned off all social media for the 2 weeks before the election, that was an absolute disgrace.
Yep.
And if I was Donald Trump, I would focus on that as being my main argument that that election was slanted against him. When he goes off into saying that there was widespread rigging and voters...
Yeah, so yes, the election was rigged in that sense of it was slated against him. Media corporations, Hollywood, just like there was a huge conglomeration of people colluding to make sure Trump didn't get elected. So in that regard, yes. There's a Time magazine article, the shadow campaign that got Biden elected or something, right? So there's that, but I don't think there's widespread fraud enough to overturn the 2020 election.
Systems were wrong. We've litigated all this now through various court cases. Various Republican judges have ruled there was no rigging of that kind. In fact, the American election system is accepted by most people around the world as being one of the best in the world, one of the most reliable. So I just think he fought the wrong argument. If he said,
I don't know about the most reliable in the world, but I mean, definitely better than third world countries.
The deliberate suppression of damaging stories to the Bidens, which could have swung the election, was outrageous and unacceptable. I'm 100% behind him. But by building this spurious argument that it was all rigged through voting systems and so on, he lost me.
Well, I agree about the voting systems, but when they went into the machines, I think that was ridiculous. However, what has to be accounted for is that in 2016, 35% of the votes were cast by mail. By 2020, it was 70% because of the pandemic. So you doubled the amount of votes that happened by mail. They called it in-person early voting. They called it a variety of different things. And the other thing that they changed is they solicited the mail-in ballots. So they sent ballots to people's houses. And once you do that, I mean, you have absentee balloting normally, but it's a process. You got to give your social security number, your ID. They send it to you. There's regulations in place. This is an election where they double the amount of mail-in votes, and they sent ballots to people's houses. And when you do that, you break the chain of custody.
They also violated a bunch of state constitutions by changing the voting methods in those states, like namely Pennsylvania. So there's also there.
So they send the ballot out, and then they tell people return it at a 24-hour ballot drop site that's unsupervised. There's thousands of them, and they're going to hope that all the ballots that find their way into these drop boxes were filled out by the person that the ballot was intended for. And I know that didn't happen. I'll tell you why. My uncle has been dead for 26 years. He got a ballot in 2020. It was mailed to my parents' house.
That's actually insane. I've heard these stories too, and this is where it's like that there's fraud, and there's a lot of fraud with especially the mass mail-in voting, but was it enough to overturn the election? I don't know.
And that was happening in nursing homes. That was happening in apartment buildings.
But you also know that every independent body that has looked at this has concluded there was no widespread rigging, that it was a free and fair election, and Trump lost. And the bottom line is he should stop going about it anyway because he won back the White House in 2024. Like as you have been so keen to tell me, move on, right? No one wants to look back too far.
That's a separate argument. I mean, you can say that he should stop talking about it, but whether it was rigged or not is actually relevant to what happened on January 6th. Because what happened on J6 is people were outraged about it. People were furious that, and by the way, there's never been an independent ballot audit in all the states where there was alleged to be rigging. That has not happened. And certainly it did not happen up until January 6th. And people said, this is ridiculous. They're stealing it.
Honestly, if either you or Donald Trump or anybody else wants to show me, I said this to him on interview last, if you show me the actual hardcore, incontrovertible evidence, then great. I've never seen it. Joe Rogan asked him. He didn't produce it with Joe Rogan. It's just never been produced. But look, I don't want to labor the point on that. So I suppose a more interesting question now, as your influence rises in the conservative movement in America, and there's a lot of splits going on amongst MAGA over a number of issues, and about you, and you know this, is your split with Trump irrevocable? Do you feel now, as we head towards the year of the midterms, that it's time to now look to who his successor will be, and who do you think that person should be?
Well, it's not irrevocable, but I am very pessimistic about this administration, and succession is something that I've been interested in for as long as I've been doing the show, and I think it's very clear that they are grooming J.D. Vance to be that successor, and by they, I mean Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Peter Thiel. There seems to be an organization that was put in place roughly around 2022, when Peter Thiel was very active in the midterm elections. He spent, I think, over $30 million, $15 million for Vance, $15 million for Masters. Spent a lot of money.
Can you think about how much money that is? You just have 30 million, or did he say 30 million or billion?
Peter Thiel was very active. Tucker Carlson, Peter Thiel. There seems to be an organization that was put in place roughly around 2022 when Peter Thiel was very active in the midterm elections. He spent, I think, over $30 million.
Yeah, 30 million. Just have millions of dollars just spend on elections. That's insane.
15 million for Vance, 15 million for Masters. Spent a lot of money in a lot of other congressional races, trying to unseat the Republicans that voted for impeachment in 21, and also building out a media market, building out a patronage network, funding things like Passage Press, Sovereign House, a number of other projects to create sort of like a self-contained media ecosystem. And Vance is clearly the selected nominee. That is who the interests want. And they've been pushing for him very strongly. So I think he's the heir apparent right now. There's a forceful push. I've heard good things about him. I've heard bad things about him too. And where I think it needs to go is I think we need to return to the message from 2016, what Trump said in the first election, which
I think this is probably one of my biggest disagreements with Nick. I really like JD Vance. I really think he's great. I think he is stronger on a lot of these issues and much more well articulate when it comes to a lot of these issues than Trump. He is nowhere near charismatic as Trump. He doesn't know how to activate people as much as Trump. But I do think he is someone who has been kind of radicalized to the right online. And as much as he has involvements with Peter Thiel and all that stuff, they say Peter Thiel groomed him and things like that. But I do think that JD is good. I like him. And yes, you might say like, oh no, but like he's a puppet. He's a puppet of Peter Thiel, and he is the puppet of, you know, big tech donors, Silicon Valley donors and all that stuff. But like he says things and he advocates for things that are genuinely right wing. And I don't know. I just think he's good. And he's the best candidate we have. And if you can show me someone better than JD Vance currently right now in the Republican Party, I'd be more than happy to hear it. But ultimately, I think JD's our guy. I do. I think he is good. He's young, so he's tapped in to what the younger generation wants and needs. This is also why the death of Charlie Kirk was such a tragedy, because he was tapped into what the young people wanted. And Charlie was a lot more right-wing than people would give him credit for. And so Charlie was kind of like the pipeline to the White House for Gen Z. And, you know, I think JD Vance is similar to that. He literally follows Shoe On Head on Twitter. Okay, you don't think he's tapped in? I think he's tapped in. He refuses to denounce all the racists and all the anti-Semites and the Nazis. He doesn't do that like humiliation ritual of denouncing and deplatforming and all that stuff. So I think he's good. I think he's our guy. I don't think he's doing it intentionally to win the favor of the vote, because by doing so, he actually loses a lot of favor from neocons, normie cons, and normie conservatives who hold a lot of money and institutional power. I don't think there's a lot he gains. Like he didn't disavow those GOP staffers when their Telegram chat was leaked. Like I think he's our guy. I think he has really good political instincts. He's not as charismatic as Trump, but I do think he has good political instincts. He has good values. I like JD Vance. So like there's no other guy. Like who else is better? Who else is better than JD Vance? No. Vivek is bad, Tony. Vivek is bad. Vivek is, the more that you look into Vivek, you see that he's a scammer. He got rich scamming his investors of an Alzheimer's medicine. And, you know, his whole masks fell off like last year when he told Americans that they're lazy and that we need H-1Bs. So I don't know. I don't like Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't trust him. Ron DeSantis. I think Ron DeSantis is great too. I think he's great, but I think JD's better. I think JD is more right-wing, authentically right-wing, and more tapped in to post-liberal philosophy and like that kind of thought than Ron DeSantis is. So I think JD's better than Ron DeSantis, but I don't know. I do like Ron DeSantis too. I just thought his move in 2024 was so stupid to run against Trump. It's so dumb. Like, why would you do that? Yeah. So I think that, for me, that was a big red flag for me. I'm like, dude, like, for the sake of the movement, everyone saw you as Trump's successor. You could have just run in 2028. But his political ambitions got to him. So that's where I think he died as Trump's potential successor. In my eyes and in the base's eyes. But I do still like Ron DeSantis very much. I think he's doing a great job in Florida. What's your opinion on RFK? I think he's fine. I think he's good. I think RFK he's a liberal, but I think when it comes to the health issue, he's really solid. JD pick as his VP, Marco Rubio. Not Marco Rubio. I don't think he's that great. Tulsi Gabbard, not great. I like Pete Hegseth is great. I really like Pete Hegseth. He's really great. Tulsi Gabbard's a liberal though. She's a liberal. We saw the leaks JD put out questioning the military actions in the Middle East. He is authentically anti-neocon. Yeah, he is. He really is. And Pete Hegseth is great. I wouldn't even mind like a JD Pete Hegseth ballot. But I don't know. I think JD's our guy. unless anyone else can tell me who would be better than JD, I think JD's our guy. I don't know. I really like him.
Is we need to drain the swamp. We need to get the money out of politics, the super PACs, the special interests, put America first in foreign policy and the wars, close the border and deport the illegals, and reindustrialize America, bring back manufacturing, bring back jobs. We're in this Cold War with China. We need America to have productive capacity again. We need America to have wealth. So I think whoever is going to bring us back to that, that's who I'm going to support, and I haven't seen enough from Vance yet.
You called J.D. Vance's wife a Jeet. What does that mean?
It's a slur for Indians.
Why would you use that?
Bro.
Well, you want the honest answer?
Because you're racist?
No, there's actually a different reason. The reason why I said that, if you watch the whole show, did you watch that whole show? By the way?
But you admitted you use that slur. I'm just curious why you would use that about a woman with her heritage.
There's a really important reason why, and this is why context matters. If you look online at the people that are supporting J.D. Vance the most, they are racist. They're racist also, let's say. And they look at someone like myself, I don't support J.D. Vance, and they say, you're brown, you're a third worldist. They are gleefully participating in the cruelty, you could say the performative cruelty of the Trump administration. They say, you're going back. You have 100 days until you're being deported. You're going into Crystal. And then they tell us to vote for J.D. Vance. And so all I did on the show is I said, you have basically racist chuds that post memes about Indians all day on Twitter, memes about third worldists and Palestinians even. But then they want to turn around and support a guy who has said on Twitter, how dare you say I'm racist? I have non-white kids and I'm in an interracial marriage. And all I said is I just said that's a little ironic. I said that's hypocritical. And Vance is going to have to explain to all of his supporters who have gassed him up as the real mass deportation candidate. He's going to have to explain to them what's going on with that. What is with the contradiction? Because
you don't feel any accountability for the.
By the way, because of this, I don't know if you guys remember when J.D. Vance had that Turning Point event and he was talking about how he loves his wife and he loves the Christian founding of this country. He was unapologetic about the Christian foundings of this country, but also he said he prays for his wife and he hopes his wife becomes Christian. And there were so many Indian nationalists, so Hindu nationalists and Indians who are just flooding the internet, just calling for, JD to get divorced and hope that Usha divorces JD Vance and destroy their marriage falls apart. And I'm just like, bro, like that is freaking insane. Like that's freaking insane. And they say that we're hateful. We're hateful for not wanting to have these people on the internet having the same conversations, being in our conversation with us, and having these people in our country. But I think that's a dilemma that I really hope that JD is working through well. I think he is. I don't think there's any problems there, but there's a lot of distrust in JD Vance because his wife is Indian and his whole extended family is Indian, and there is something there, and his sons' names are Indian, and so there is like the genuine concern about, hey, JD has allegiances. His first and foremost, if he believes in ordo amoris, right, rightly prioritized loves, rightly ordered loves, then he'll put his family first, and his family is Indian. So then when push comes to shove, will he side with his family, who is Indian, where Indians are very ethnocentric? Again, nothing inherently wrong with that, but they are. Will he side with Indians, or will he side with the what you call heritage Americans? And JD Vance's rhetoric has been so far in favor of heritage Americans, but I think people are valid in their concerns about. But when push comes to shove, would you be okay with your family members being discontent about maybe even the potential of a lot of H-1Bs going back to India because it'll affect mostly Indians? So. Hinduism is a patriarchal religion, though, at least, so I think they're generally they're generally conservative, but they're not Christian. So my first and foremost thing is we should have a nation that honors God. Like that's the first and foremost priority. We should have a nation that honors God, and we keep importing people who don't love God and they blaspheme him. I don't think that's just good for our nation at all. And God does not bless a nation that dishonors him and blasphemes him. So that's one thing, but I think there is something there, but I just really hope, I don't hope, and I wouldn't like if JD Vance's marriage or family fell apart or things like that. Politics is really ugly. So when you get into politics, you have to understand what you're getting into. I really hope that their family stays together and that Usha Vance comes to Christ. But the good thing is that JD is raising his kids as Catholic and Christian. But yeah, I do understand the concern there. I do understand the concern from voters.
Millions of young people that will hear you use that slur and think it's fine to use it.
No, I think that's ridiculous.
Okay. Let's take a final break. I'll come back with a little kind of summary of how you think this interview has gone for you. Okay. If you're a fan of Epic, you want to go ahead with Dragon Cycle, so you don't miss out. Okay, next one. We've been talking for nearly 2 hours. What is your view of how the interview has gone?
Wow, it's already been 2 hours? Yo, I've been streaming for 3.5 hours, chat. What the frick?
I think it was great. Honestly, I think it was a tough interview. You're a tough interviewer. But I don't think there were surprises. I will not say it was an ambush because it wasn't. I sort of anticipated that you would make some choices about how you wanted it to go, and I was fine with it. So I thought it was terrific.
As a Catholic, you're probably aware the Jerusalem Post has recently called on the Pope to openly condemn you. Would it matter to you if the Pope did? He's an American Pope, obviously.
It would be very disheartening.
I'm excited for the Daily Wire's Pendragon cycle. I think it was the way that they went about it was a huge flop, but I'm excited for it. I think it'll be good. It looks really good so far. I have a lot of friends who worked on it, so I'm excited for it. I just think that they should have released it in theaters. If you want to have genuine cultural impact, I get it. You're not gonna the theaters and the distributors pocket a lot of the money. I get it. But if you want to have genuine cultural impact, and you want to have, if you want to solidify yourself as a force in cinema, you got to get your stuff out in theaters. And the reason why Am I Racist was so effective was because it was out in theaters. It was out in theaters. And you got to get it out in theaters. Can you imagine if Angel Studios was like, okay, we're just going to have David behind a paywall? No, you got to get your stuff out in theaters. And I know they structured it for a show format. I get it. But I wish they did it in installments, maybe like a trilogy or something, and got it out in theaters. Because I think that would have saved a lot of the post-production work that had to get done. I think it would have simplified a lot of things, but and got out the movie quicker, the work quicker. But also, you want to make cultural impact. You want to get people who don't normally subscribe to the Daily Wire to watch your stuff. And for you to have cultural impact through cinema, you want people who aren't super politically inclined and aren't super conservative and based to watch your content. But because you put all your eggs in one basket and you went about it the wrong way, they had to shut down Benki Studios, which was their kids programming. They had to do a lot of layoffs. They had to cut their budget a lot. And yeah, it's just Daily Wire. For now, it's not largely, but they've become a lot more irrelevant. So, I don't know. I will still watch it. I will let you guys know how I like it. Maybe we can watch it together somehow, some way. But, yeah, I think that would be copyright. That would be violating copyright law, so I can't do that. But, yeah, I'll be watching it. I'm excited for it.
Yes.
They're getting plenty of shows in theaters. Yeah, it's just, maybe even just the first 2 episodes in theaters. And then the rest behind a paywall. Something like that. But they didn't even do that. They just want it all to be on live stream, on their streaming service. And there's just not that much buzz about it right now. There was so much buzz about it 2 years ago, but after all their PR nightmares and cutting Brett Cooper and all that stuff, there's a lot of people who don't really like the Daily Wire as much anymore.
Why?
Because he's our spiritual leader. He's the head of the church. He's the vicar of Christ. So if he condemned me, that would be very disheartening. And it would depend upon what he would say exactly. But yeah, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that at all.
If he condemned you because you've openly admitted to being a racist on this show?
Well, this racist, I would be disappointed if he said that, because I think that word racist, it means something different to everybody. And so I think that's just silly. I think that's just semantic.
Have you ever been in love in your life?
No, romantically, no.
Yeah, never?
No.
Do you think that's part of the problem?
What's the problem?
Why you are the way you are.
Oh, and what's the way I am? What are you trying to say?
I've given people 2 hours of the way you are. You're unashamed about a lot of it.
I don't think I have a problem. I think I'm cheerful, boisterous. Unlike you, I'm willing to be a little provocative. Well, I guess you're willing to be provocative, but I'm willing to be very provocative, and I'm a free thinker. And I don't like to be tone policed. I don't like to be told about, people are going to tone police and play moral cop about you can't make this joke or you can't make this statement. And I think that's just about being intellectually open. I'm a believer in openness.
I completely agree. I think you should be perfectly free to express yourself exactly how you see fit. My problem is how you see fit with some of the...
Yeah, Piers Morgan resorting to personal attacks. Wow. The sky is blue, right? It's the name of the game with these liberals. They resort to personal attacks.
Things that you say. And we've been through a lot of them. And I think people who don't know you very well will have been shocked in parts and surprised in other parts. But in totality, they can see you for what you are. I think we've got a lot nearer to what the real Nick Fuentes is in the last 2 hours than we probably have seen from your other recent interviews. Would you agree?
No, I mean, the clip thing, we've done the clip thing. We've all seen the clip show. Everyone's seen the clips. You think you're the first one to do the ADL rap sheet. So here you said this, and then here you said that. I've been playing that game for 10 years. So this is honestly more of the same, to tell you the truth.
Nick Fuentes, I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, my thanks to Nick Fuentes, and my thanks to the hundreds of thousands of you watching this special live episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored. As I said during the interview, I think it was firm but fair, but you can all make up your own minds. If you like what you do, please like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep doing it. I'm back tomorrow. Until then, whatever you're up to, keep it uncensored.
All right, what an interview. Let's see what people said.
You're a New York Times reader, NPR fan.
Let's see what the comments say, chat. How was it received? Yo, already? Bro, already 500,000 views? Dang, already 12,000 comments. Shoot. Man, chat, one day we'll get there where we're so influential we have this many comments. Holy. Piers not understanding per capita or Catholic doctrine was hilarious. I'm in the UK and got arrested for watching this. Watching a boomer struggle to understand an edgelord is so gold. So true. I sat in front of a black guy on the subway with my headphones on to listen to this. I'm black and I changed the batteries on my smoke alarm just to watch this. My wife stopped reading 50 Shades of Grey to watch this. No. Yeah, I agree with this comment. Piers resorting to virgin insults pretty much sums up this whole thing. It does. It does. Again, liberalism is hedonism. This is why they can't understand right-wing, like authentic right-wing thoughts and like why right-wingers behave the way that they do. Why shouldn't you be allowed to do whatever the heck you want? I mean, because there's a transcendent moral order and a moral code that we should adhere to, and we should want society structured in a certain way that incentivizes good behavior and moral behavior. No, just do whatever you want. And that's the same mentality of what just justifies the trans stuff. And they're like, yeah, like, oh, like trans stuff is fine as long as it doesn't hurt anyone. Dude, it's gonna hurt everyone because it's sin and it's disordered. Yeah, this is so true. Piers pretends to be Catholic and 2 minutes later attacks Nick for being a virgin. The lack of self-awareness is incredible. That's the thing, like, what's the point of calling you Catholic if you don't even subscribe to Catholic sexual ethics? Yeah, I'm racist. The boomer mind has no idea how to respond to this moral assault that's been the ultimate stop talking you're a bad person for literally mine and their entire lives. Literally all it took was yeah, and what now? Exactly. That's how you should respond. Who cares? So what? That's like, chat, that you don't genuinely, irrationally hate people who are different from you. I know that I don't. I'm accountable before God. I'm accountable before my family and my church community. I'm not accountable to strangers on the internet and haters who hate God and hate all that which is good and true, okay? I am not beholden to prove myself to my enemies. So when they lodge this against you, this cudgel that's used to beat you, browbeat you into submission, and you just say, okay, and what? So what? Who cares? They have no idea how to respond. And then they freeze. They're like, I thought it would work. It's worked for the past 60 years. They don't know how to respond. A 60-year-old man taunting a 27-year-old with, are you a virgin? Wow. Really, Nick got to him. Nate really got to him. I'm an Israeli pilot and I stopped strafing USS Liberty lifeboats to watch this interview. That's brutal. The per capita portion of this interview is enough to never take Piers seriously in the future ever again. So true. Why too soon? Genuinely make me laugh out loud. This interview had the complete opposite effect Piers Morgan was hoping for. So true. This is one of the greatest moments in the interview, I think. You got knife problems. You got sword problems. You have Aladdin. That was funny. Love him or hate him, like, Nick is hilarious. Like, his jokes are funny. I think, obviously, of course, he crosses the line sometimes. But, you know, when he does banter with people on these interviews, it's so funny. Arrived as a Piers fan, left as a Fuentes fan. Piers is getting absolutely slapped around in his own comment section. LOL. Yeah. When Nick said it was probably 10 times worse than 6 million and Piers believed him. Yeah, this moment was funny too. You're being rude. Are you black? Yeah, Nick not being offended by being called racist really stumped Piers. That's the thing. It's like these liberals, these boomers are so used to getting their way just by calling you racist, and conservatives, right-wingers, like flailing their arms around and saying, no, I'm not racist. No, please believe me. I'm not racist. I'm a good person. That when you just say, hey, I don't care what you call me. Like, they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. Yeah. So funny. All right, chat. Well, that was a long interview. I didn't think it'd be 2 hours. I thought it'd be in like hour and a half max, but we've been streaming almost over 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Chat, what did you think? What did you think of the show? What did you think of the interview with Piers Morgan versus Nick Fuentes? My thoughts are, chat, it's, I think overall, of course, I think Nick won easily. I mean, there's no debate, right? So there's not really winning or losing. I think Nick did a good job explaining his views well, kind of bucking against the very liberal religion that is the liberal consensus about certain narratives and certain words that you can or cannot say, certain jokes you can or cannot say. Of course, I think his weak point was not being able to, at least when it comes to the average viewer, right? To sympathize with the suffering of that British Jewish dude. What is his last name? Like Finkelstein? I think if you want to win more people over, you have to be able to acknowledge that. So, and then do what he did and then explain his position. But he wasn't able to, he didn't acknowledge that, which I think was a weak point. I think Piers was right in that Nick, if he doesn't want his family to be criticized, he shouldn't talk about his family. But at the same time, yes, it is a low blow from Piers to talk, like attack, or not attack really, but to mention his dad. So there's that. I think overall Nick did a good job. He was funny. I think Piers was fair. I think Piers was fair in his questioning, but at the same time, it's like when he would get super riled up and just keep calling him racist, misogynist. He didn't do the anti-Semite thing as much, and I think it's because Piers he's come around to criticizing Israel for their actions in Gaza. But yeah, and I think he knows too, like people have smeared him as an anti-Semite, so you can kind of tell it's like, oh, if you've been the subject of smear campaigns, you tend not to lodge those same accusations against other people. But he was like, oh, you're misogynist, you're a racist. And I think ultimately Piers wasn't able to fully understand Nick's positions well. And he was just so caught up in the rhetoric and calling Nick cruel for his jokes instead of for what's happening as a result of the things that he's making jokes about, if that makes sense. So, for example, he's cruel for making jokes about black people, but it's not cruel. Well, I mean, to be fair, Piers Morgan did say that what happened to Irina Zarutska was awful, horrendous, and despicable. But it's like, dude, you can't say making jokes about certain groups of people is cruelty. It's just jokes. It's just jokes. If it was cruelty, why would certain people of that same group laugh at it and agree with it? You know who I love these days? The Cartier family. You guys know the 3 black brothers who react to things online? They're great. I love them. I love them to death. They're really awesome. And they're really cool. They've had nothing but good thing. I've had nothing but good interactions with them. Dude, if all black people were like the Cartier family, like no one would have a problem with black people. They wouldn't. They're really great. I love them. But yeah, it's like why would those people laugh at Nick's jokes if it's cruelty? It's not cruelty. He's just calling out the hypocrisy and the stupidity that is modern politics and the modern state of society. So I think certain jokes can go too far for sure, but it's not cruelty. It's not cruelty to call out the things that are literally causing cruelty in our streets. Unsafe streets, women being raped, women being assaulted, people being assaulted and stabbed and killed to death. Killed to death that's verbose. You don't need to say that. If you're killed to death, if you're killed, you are dead. So, but yeah, Amir Odom, like Amir and I are friendly, and Amir is literally gay. Like that guy is gay. But I watched this video recently. I wanted to see what he had to say about Nick, and he was like, yeah, I think Nick is fine. And he laughs at Nick's jokes because Amir is also one of those guys who I don't agree with him 100%, of course, but he and I have been friendly. We've been friendly for a long time. And yeah, of course, for me, like I'm friendly with everyone, all right? Even if you're gay. But even someone like him, he's like, dude, like black people need to clean up their act. And what he says about black people is totally true. It's the state of Black America right now is really appalling. It's horrible. It's ridden with crime and disruption and chaos. And so even Amir, right, who is not really a staunch right-winger, he's gay. And he acknowledges that. He also acknowledges where that comes from. So that way, I guess he's kind of right-wing. Because being right-wing today kind of just means you acknowledge reality. And being liberal, being left-wing is you refuse to acknowledge reality and instead you hold on to these utopian ideas of what you think society should be, which is why, for example, they're soft on crime policies. Oh, if we just give them a chance, they'll be fine. And they let them out and they freaking kill more people and beat up more people. But yeah, it's not cruelty. It's not cruelty to make these jokes, these politically incorrect jokes. It's not cruelty. Yeah, it crosses the line. Certain jokes I wouldn't say personally in private and in public, but like it's not cruelty. It's not cruelty. And there's just the pearl clutching is where a lot of Gen Z watches that and they're like, Piers, you're out of touch. You're out of touch. But ultimately, I thought it was a fine interview. I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. I think there was good zingers. I think Piers had some few zingers too. But yeah, I don't think there's anything revolutionary about it. Yeah, it was a good interview. It was a good interview.